There once was a beautiful, handcrafted teacup. It was perfect in its form, with a delicate glaze that shimmered in the light. Its owner cherished it, using it every morning for a mindful cup of tea. It was a source of simple, quiet joy. One day, a small, almost invisible crack appeared near the handle. At first, the owner was filled with sadness and frustration. His perfect teacup was now flawed. He tried to ignore the crack, turning the cup so he wouldn't see it, but he always knew it was there. His morning ritual, once a source of peace, was now tinged with anxiety. He feared the crack would grow, that the cup would one day break completely. Then, a wise friend, seeing his distress, said something simple. The crack, the friend said, is a reminder. It is telling the story of the cup's life, and it is also telling you that the cup was always destined to return to the earth from which it came. The cup was already broken from the moment the clay was shaped. At that moment, the owner's perspective shifted. He began to see the crack not as an imperfection, but as part of the cup's unique journey. He started to cherish the teacup even more, not in spite of its flaw, but because of it. He understood that its fragile, temporary nature was what made it so precious. Perhaps your life feels like this teacup. You see the cracks, the anxieties, the disappointments, the losses, the fears of what's to come. You try to hide them, to fix them, to pretend they aren't there. You long for a life that is perfect, stable, and unchanging. But this struggle, this resistance against the cracks, is the very source of our deepest suffering. Today, we will explore this together. We will not try to magically mend the cracks. Instead, we will learn to see them with wisdom and compassion. We will learn about the profound, liberating truth of impermanence, and we will discover the quiet strength that lies in acceptance. This is a journey from struggle to peace, from holding on to letting be. 1. The unseen architect, acknowledging the law of change. Impermanence is not a Buddhist invention. It is not a philosophy you must choose to believe in, any more than you must choose to believe in the sun rising or the tide turning. It is a fundamental law of the universe, as real, as constant, and as impersonal as gravity. The ancient Pali word for this truth is anicca. It translates simply to not permanent or transience. It is the quiet, unseen architect of all existence, the force that ensures nothing remains static. Look around you, and within you, everything you can perceive with your senses, and everything you can conceive of with your mind, is subject to this absolute law. The majestic mountain that appears so solid on the horizon is, over eons, being worn down by wind and rain, its stone returning to dust. The distant star that twinkles in the night sky may have already died millions of years ago, its light only now reaching us, a postcard from a past that no longer exists. On a more human scale, the city you live in is in a constant state of demolition and construction. The relationships that define your world shift in their dynamics from day to day, conversation to conversation. And the body you call your own, this vessel of your experience, is a bustling metropolis of change. In this very moment, millions of your cells are dying, and millions more are being born. The person you were physically 7 years ago is almost entirely gone, replaced by a new collection of cells. You are not a fixed entity. You are a process, a river of biological transformation. This is a simple, observable fact. Yet, our minds have been conditioned to live in a state of denial about this truth. We build our lives, our hopes, our dreams, and our very identities upon a foundation of sand, all the while expecting it to have the stability of granite. We seek and demand permanence in a universe that is defined by its ceaseless flow. This profound mismatch, this gap between our deepest desires for security and the fluid reality of life, is the fertile ground from which much of our anxiety, frustration, and disappointment grows. In the Buddhist tradition, this pervasive sense of dissatisfaction is known as dukkha. Dukkha is not always dramatic, tragic suffering. More often, it is the low-grade, background hum of discontent, the feeling that things are not quite right, that something is missing, the subtle stress of trying to hold everything together. Imagine a person who decides to build the most magnificent sandcastle at the ocean's edge. They pour all their energy and focus into it. They meticulously sculpt intricate towers and strong walls. They feel a sense of pride and accomplishment as it takes shape. The castle becomes a symbol of their effort, their creativity, their very self. Then, the tide begins to come in. A small wave licks at the foundation, and a corner of the wall dissolves back into the wet sand. The builder feels a jolt of panic. They rush to repair the damage, frantically scooping up sand, trying to reinforce the wall. But another wave comes, larger this time. A tower crumbles. The builder may feel anger at the ocean for its relentless assault. They may feel despair that their beautiful creation is being destroyed. They may feel personal failure that they were not skilled enough to protect it. In all this frantic effort and emotional turmoil, they are missing the fundamental point. The problem is not the ocean. The ocean is not being malicious. It is simply behaving according to its nature. The problem is not the sand, which is simply returning to its source. The problem lies in the builder's expectation. The expectation that a structure made of sand, built in the path of the tide, could ever be permanent. Their suffering comes not from the changing nature of the world, but from their resistance to it. We are all this sandcastle builder. Our career path is our sandcastle. We want a smooth, upward trajectory with no unexpected layoffs or project failures. Our relationships are our sandcastles. We want our loved ones to remain just as they are, for the warmth and security of the present moment to last forever. Our health and youth are our sandcastles, which we try to protect with diets and exercise. Yet time inevitably leaves its mark. Our very identity, our sense of me, is the grandest sandcastle of all, built from beliefs, accomplishments, roles, and memories. When the waves of life and illness, a breakup, a criticism, the simple passage of time begin to erode these structures, we react with the same fear and frustration as the builder on the beach. We feel that something is going wrong. We feel that life is being unfair. The first, most crucial step on the path toward inner peace is to shift this perspective. It is to turn our attention away from the crumbling castle and toward the nature of the ocean itself. It is to move from resistance to acknowledgement. This is not the same as resignation. Resignation is passive, pessimistic, and defeated. It is saying, nothing matters, so why bother? Acknowledgement, on the other hand, is an act of profound wisdom and clarity. It is the courageous act of seeing things exactly as they are. Think of a sailor. A novice sailor might curse the wind when it blows against their desired direction. They might try to power through it, exhausting their energy and making little progress. A wise sailor, however, first acknowledges the wind. They feel its direction, its strength. They accept it as the reality of the moment. Then, with this clear seeing, they adjust their sails. They work with the energy of the wind, tacking and turning, to guide their boat toward their destination. They do not control the wind, but by understanding and accepting it, they learn to navigate skillfully. Acknowledging impermanence is learning to be a wise sailor on the ocean of life. This is where the practice of insight meditation, or vipassana, becomes our laboratory. It is here that we can move beyond intellectually agreeing with the idea of impermanence and begin to experience its truth directly. We set aside time to sit quietly and simply observe our own experience, moment by moment. We start with the breath. We don't try to control it. We simply rest our awareness on the natural, spontaneous flow. Feel the cool air entering your nostrils on the in-breath. Notice the slight pause at the peak of the inhalation. Then feel the warm air as it leaves your body on the out-breath. Notice the moment of stillness before the next breath begins. Each single breath is a complete drama of anicca. It is born, it lives its short life, and it passes away, creating space for the next. In 10 minutes of sitting, you witness thousands of these cycles of birth and death. You are watching impermanence in real time. Then, you notice the mind. A thought of a task you need to do tomorrow arises. Where did it come from? You didn't summon it. It simply appeared, like a cloud in the sky of your awareness. Instead of grabbing onto it and following it down a rabbit hole of planning, you simply note it. Ah, planning. You watch it with gentle curiosity, and you notice that, just as it arose on its own, it will also change and dissolve on its own, replaced by a memory, a sound, or another thought. You begin to see that you are not your thoughts. You are the spacious awareness in which the thoughts appear and disappear. You bring your attention to the sensations in your body. Perhaps there is an ache in your back, a tingling in your hands, an itch on your face. Our usual reaction is to label these as bad or distracting and immediately try to get rid of them. The practice invites a different approach. Look closely at the sensation. What is it really? Is it a solid, unchanging thing? Or is it a pattern of vibrations, a pulsing, a flow of energy? As you watch, you see that it too is changing. It may intensify, it may soften, it may move. It is not a solid entity, it is a process. By engaging in this patient, gentle observation, we are retraining our perception at the deepest level. We are slowly and carefully dismantling the lifelong habit of seeing the world as a collection of static, solid things. We are deconstructing the illusion of permanence, not with aggression, but with quiet, persistent looking. We are not destroying anything real. We are simply learning to see through a misunderstanding. And in this seeing, something remarkable begins to happen. The frantic energy of the sandcastle builder begins to subside. The fear of the ocean's waves begins to lessen. We start to understand that the cracks in the teacup are not flaws to be hidden, but the beautiful, inevitable signature of life itself. We begin to find a peace that is not dependent on circumstances being stable or perfect. It is the unshakable peace of coming into harmony with the way things truly are. 2. The river of now, embracing the flow. The ancient Greek philosopher Heraclitus once offered a profound insight, famously stating, "You cannot step into the same river twice. The water is ever moving, constantly replaced." The Buddha, in his deep exploration of reality, would have fully agreed, perhaps adding a crucial second clause, "And you are not the same person who steps into it." This dual truth forms the heart of a living, breathing understanding of impermanence. Life is not a series of disconnected, static photographs that we can collect and possess. It is a river, powerful, dynamic, continuous, and alive. The present moment, this very moment of your hearing these words, is that river. For most of us, our entire life is spent in a tense and exhausting relationship with this river. We stand waist-deep in its current, engaging in one of 3 futile struggles. The first is the struggle of the dam builder. Filled with anxiety about the future and a deep need for control, we try to stop the flow. We build dams made of rigid plans, strict routines, and inflexible expectations. We have a 5-year plan, a detailed itinerary for our vacation, a script for a difficult conversation. We believe that if we can just manage every variable, we can force the river of life into a predictable, manageable channel. But life, like a powerful river, has its own course. An unexpected illness washes over our career plans. A spontaneous moment of connection deviates from our scripted conversation. The river inevitably breaches our dams, and we are left feeling overwhelmed, defeated, and like a failure, blind to the fact that our strategy was flawed from the outset. The second struggle is that of the clinger. Acutely aware of the river's powerful current, and terrified of the unknown downstream. We desperately search for something solid to hold on to. We find a smooth, familiar rock perhaps, a comfortable job, a stable relationship, a cherished memory, and we cling to it with all our might. Our knuckles are white with the effort of holding on. I can't lose this job, we tell ourselves. My whole identity depends on it. This person must never leave me, we think. I would be nothing without them. The clinger lives in a state of constant, low-grade fear, because they know, deep down, that the current is relentlessly tugging, eroding the very rock to which they cling. Their grip smothers the vitality of the things they are trying to preserve, and they are too consumed by the fear of loss to enjoy the feeling of the water or the view from where they are. The third struggle is that of the backward swimmer. This person is haunted by the past. They are obsessed with the wake their life has left behind. They are caught in whirlpools of regret over past mistakes, or they are endlessly trying to swim back upstream to a golden moment of past happiness. Their energy is entirely consumed by what has already gone by. They are so focused on the water that has passed that they are blind to the landscape they are currently moving through. They battle the full force of the current in a draining, impossible attempt to rewind Timmy, ensuring they remain stuck, exhausted, and unable to move forward with their lives. The dam builder, the clinger, and the backward swimmer all share one thing in common. They are fighting reality, and this fight is the very definition of suffering. The Buddhist path offers a radical, liberating alternative. It does not ask you to become stronger to fight the river more effectively. It asks you to change your posture entirely. It invites you to let go. The first stage of this new posture is learning to float. Imagine the release. You let go of the riverbank you were clinging to. You stop trying to swim against the current. You cease your frantic dam building. You simply lie back, take a breath, and let the water hold you. This is an act of profound trust and surrender. It is not giving up, it is giving in to the nature of reality. For the first Timmy, you are not fighting the river, you are allowing it to carry you. You feel its power not as a threat, but as a supportive force. This is the essence of acceptance. You accept that you are in a river. You accept that it is flowing. You accept that you do not have ultimate control over its course. In this surrender, you find not weakness, but a surprising strength and peace. The tension in your body subsides. Your mind, no longer consumed with struggle, becomes quiet and clear. From this place of floating, you can progress to the second stage, learning to swim. A master swimmer does not view the river's current as an adversary. They view it as a source of information and energy. They are fully present, alert, and responsive. They feel the subtle shifts in the current and adjust their strokes accordingly. They see an obstacle ahead, a large rock or a fallen branchard. They don't panic. They skillfully navigate around it, using the river's own flow to help guide them. This is the metaphor for mindfulness in action. It is a state of dynamic, engaged, and wise participation. You can bring this practice into the very core of your American life. Consider your high-pressure career. The dam builder has a rigid 10-year plan and suffers immense stress when a promotion is delayed or the company restructures. The wise swimmer has an intention to grow, to contribute, to move towards the other shore, but their primary focus is on swimming well today. They navigate today's meeting with presence. They handle today's challenging email with clarity. They respond to unexpected changes not with panic, but with the adaptable grace of a swimmer adjusting to a new current. They are more effective, less stressed, and more resilient because they are working with the flow of their professional life, not against it. Consider your relationships. The clinger, terrified of loss, demands constant reassurance and tries to control their partner's life, creating a suffocating and anxious environment. The wise swimmer loves with an open hand. They cherish the journey with their partner, moment by moment. They understand that both they and their partner are, like the river, constantly changing and evolving. This understanding doesn't diminish their love, it makes it more precious. It infuses their connection with gratitude and space, allowing for genuine intimacy rather than fearful possession. The only place life truly exists is in the immediate, flowing present. The past is a memory. It is the water that has already flowed downstream. It is useful to look back at the wake, to learn from it, but you cannot go back and swim in that water. It is gone forever. To be a backward swimmer is to be a ghost in your own life. The future is an imagination. It is the river around a bend you cannot yet see. It is wise to have a sense of direction, but to be consumed with anxiety about what lies around that bend is to miss the entire journey. Anxiety is the state of trying to swim in a part of the river you haven't reached yet. The only place you have any real power, the only place you can feel the water on your skin, the only place you can make a choice is right here, right now. This is it, this breath, this sensation, this sound. This is the substance of your life. When you fully grasp this, you are freed from the twin thieves of happiness, regret over the past and anxiety for the future. You come home to the only moment that has ever been real. This is not a call to a directionless, hedonistic life. The wise swimmer has a destination in mind, but they know that the only way to get there is by paying meticulous, careful attention to the swimming itself, right now. Our intentions set our direction, but our presence determines the quality of our journey. The invitation of this teaching is profound and simple. The river of life is flowing. It has been flowing long before you arrived, and it will continue to flow long after you are gone. You do not have to spend your precious energy fighting it. You can let go of the bank. You can stop building your futile dams. You can turn around and face the direction of the flow. You can learn to float in the grace of acceptance, and then to swim with the skill of mindfulness. This is not about losing control. It is about abandoning the illusion of control and discovering a deeper, more authentic power, the power that comes from moving in harmony with the vast, mysterious, and beautiful river of life itself. 3. Why we cling, the architecture of attachment. We have explored the truth of impermanence, seeing it not as a philosophical concept, but as an undeniable law of nature, like gravity. We have also seen, through the metaphor of the river, that resisting this constant flow is an exhausting and futile struggle, the very source of our deepest anxieties. This leads us to a crucial, deeply personal question. If change is inevitable, and if fighting it causes so much pain, why do we continue to do it? What is this powerful, almost gravitational force within us that compels us to cling so tightly to things that are, by their very nature, slipping through our fingers? The answer lies in the very architecture of our identity. The Buddhist term for this intense grasping is upadana. This word means more than simple attachment. It means fuel or sustenance. We cling to things because we believe, on a subconscious level, that they are the fuel that sustains our very existence, our sense of self. To understand this, we must first examine the grand project that occupies almost every moment of our lives, the construction and maintenance of a self. From a young age, we begin to build a concept of who we are. It starts simply with a name. Then it expands. We build a story, an identity, a psychological structure that feels solid, continuous, and separate from the world around us. Let us call this structure the house of me. When we are born, we are like an empty plot of land, possessed of a raw vulnerability. The project of our life becomes building a house on this land, a house that will give us shelter, define our space, and prove to the world and to ourselves that we are real, substantial, and safe. We are meticulous architects and tireless builders of this house. The foundation is our own body. We identify with its strength, its health, its appearance. I am healthy. I am young. I look this way. The frame and beams of the house are our roles and achievements. I am a doctor. I am a mother. I am a graduate of this university. I am a homeowner. These are the structural supports that hold our identity upright. The bricks and mortar are our possessions and our wealth. This is my car. This is my money. These are my clothes. Each brick adds a sense of solidity and substance. The windows, through which we see the world and the world sees us, are our relationships. I am a husband. I am a beloved friend. I am a respected member of my community. These relationships reflect our existence back to us, confirming that we are seen and therefore that we are real. And finally, the furniture inside the house is our collection of beliefs, opinions, and memories. I am a Democrat. I am a spiritual person. I believe this is right and that is wrong. I remember this success. I am the kind of person who, this inner world of thoughts and concepts, makes the house feel like a home. We pour our life's energy into this construction project for one simple reason. We believe it will keep us safe. We believe this house of me, if built strong enough, will protect the fragile sense of self within from the harsh, unpredictable weather of the world. It provides a sense of permanence in an impermanent world. Herein lies the fundamental, tragic flaw in our design. We are attempting to build a permanent structure using materials that are, by their very nature, biodegradable. We are building with wood that rots, bricks that crumble, and glass that shatters. The law of anicca, of impermanence, guarantees that the materials of our house are all in a state of decay. The foundation of the body inevitably cracks with age and illness. The structural beams of our career can be shattered by a sudden layoff. The windows of our relationships can be broken by disagreement, distance, or death. The bricks of our possessions can be lost or destroyed. Even the furniture of our most cherished beliefs can be challenged and overturned by new experiences. When one of these components of our house is threatened or destroyed, we experience a profound and terrifying pain. This pain is more than just the sadness of loss. It is an existential crisis. It is not just that we have lost a job. It feels as if a structural wall of the house of me has collapsed, exposing us to the howling wind. It is not just that a relationship has ended. It feels as if a window has shattered, leaving a gaping hole in our very being. Our suffering is so intense because we have confused our identity with the house itself. We believe that we are the house, so when the house is damaged, we feel that we are being annihilated. This is where the Buddha offers a truth so radical it can feel disorienting at first, but which is ultimately the key to liberation. This is the teaching of anatta, often translated as no, self, or not self. This does not mean that you do not exist. You are here, breathing, experiencing, reading. Rather, it means that there is no solid, separate, permanent owner living inside the house of me. The house is there, the experience is there, but the independent, unchanging resident manager we call me cannot be found upon investigation. What we mistake for a solid self is, in fact, a temporary process. Let us return to the river. The self is not a solid rock in the middle of the river of life. The self is a whirlpool. A whirlpool is a real, observable phenomenon. It has characteristics, it has a shape and a direction, but it has no independent existence of its own. It is made of nothing but the flowing water. It is a temporary pattern, a process created by the ever-changing currents of experience, of the currents of body, of feelings, of perceptions, of thoughts, of consciousness. The moment the currents change, the whirlpool's pattern shifts or disappears. To see this for yourself, you don't have to believe it as a doctrine. You can investigate it directly, using the laboratory of your own mind in meditation. As you sit quietly, you can become an inspector of the house of me, looking for its permanent resident. A thought arises, I am feeling bored. Stop there. investigate. There is a feeling of boredom, low, restless energy. There is a thought, the words, I am bored. But where is the I who is bored? Are you the feeling? No, you can observe the feeling. Are you the thought? No, you can observe the thought. The one who is observing cannot be the thing being observed. So you look for the observer. And what do you find? Only more looking, more awareness. The deeper you search for a solid entity, the more you find only an unfolding process. You feel an ache in your knee. Is that me? No, it's a sensation, a flow of unpleasant information. You hear a bird sing outside. Is that sound me? No, it's just sound. The more you look, the more you realize that the self is a story, a convenient label that the mind applies to this continuous stream of interconnected, impersonal events. The realization of anatta is the beginning of the greatest freedom imaginable. When you see that you are not the house, but the spacious awareness in which the house appears, the desperate, anxious need to defend it at all costs begins to dissolve. The architecture of your life can change. The house of me can transform from a heavily fortified, windowless bunker into a structure with open doors and wide windows. When a pleasant experience comes along, a success, a compliment, a moment of joy, it is like a warm, fragrant breeze flowing through the open house. You can enjoy it fully, appreciate its beauty and warmth, and then allow it to pass through without needing to capture it and turn it into another brick for your wall. Your self-worth doesn't depend on it. When a painful experience comes, a failure, a criticism, a loss, it is like a cold draft. It is uncomfortable, for sure, but it too flows through the house and passes on. It doesn't need to knock down a wall or shatter your foundation, because you know that you are not the wall. Your love for others becomes more pure. You are no longer clinging to them as a necessary component of your own identity, a window you cannot afford to have broken. Instead, you can love them as they are, another flowing river, meeting your river for a precious, temporary timmy. Your enjoyment of life deepens because you are no longer trying to freeze your experiences and mount them on a wall. You are free to dance with the changing flow. This is the difference between trying to possess a beautiful butterfly by pinning it to a board, thereby killing it, and sitting with an open hand, allowing the butterfly to land for a moment, appreciating its vibrant, living beauty, and then allowing it to fly away. The ultimate security, the only real safety, is not found in building stronger walls for your house. It is found in realizing that you are the vast, open sky in which the entire weather pattern of life, sun, clouds, wind, and rain unfolds. Clinging is the attempt to own the weather. Freedom is the realization that you are the sky. 4. The parable of the second arrow, distinguishing pain from suffering. In our last exploration, we journeyed into the very heart of our identity, investigating the house of me and uncovering the liberating, if challenging, truth of anatta insight, that there is no fixed, permanent self to be found. This is a profound realization, one that can take a lifetime to fully integrate. But the beauty and compassion of the Buddhist path is that it does not demand we wait for ultimate enlightenment to find relief from our daily struggles. It provides practical, powerful tools that we can use right now, in this very moment, to lessen our burdens. One of the most direct and useful of these tools is found in a simple story, the parable of the second arrow. The Buddha told his followers that a person who lives in the world will inevitably, from timor to timor, be struck by an arrow. This first arrow represents the unavoidable painful events of life. It could be physical pain, a throbbing headache, a chronic illness, an accidental injury. It could be emotional pain, the sting of a harsh criticism, the disappointment of a plan falling through, the sharp pang of loss when a relationship ends. These first arrows are a given. They are part of the texture of human existence. No amount of careful planning or positive thinking can create a life that is entirely free from them. Pain happens. This is the first arrow. Now, the Buddha continued, an unwise person, having been struck by this first arrow, immediately reacts by shooting themselves with a second arrow. This second arrow is our mental reaction to the first. It is the story we tell ourselves about the pain. It is the torrent of thoughts and emotions that we layer on top of the raw experience. This second arrow is made of blame, fear, anger, self-pity, and catastrophizing. The first arrow causes pain. The second arrow creates suffering. Let's bring this ancient parable into the heart of our modern American lives, where second arrows fly thick and fast. Imagine you are at work and you open your email to find a message from your boss that is blunt, critical, and points out a mistake you made on a recent project. The impact of that email is the first arrow. You feel it physically, a sudden hot flush in your face, a tightening in your chest, a sinking feeling in your stomach. This is the clean, unavoidable pain of being criticized. It's unpleasant, but it is just raw data. Now, watch for the second arrow. For most of us, it is launched almost instantaneously. A thought arises, I'm such an idiot. I can't do anything right. That is the arrow of self-criticism. Another follows. She's always targeting me. She must hate me. This is the arrow of victimhood and blame. Then another. I'm definitely going to get fired. How will I pay my mortgage? This is the arrow of fear and catastrophizing. Another. I should have double-checked that work. Why am I so careless? The arrow of regret. Within minutes, that initial, simple pain of the first arrow has been compounded into a thick, toxic stew of suffering. The original event is already in the past, but you are keeping it alive and making it 1,000 times worse by repeatedly shooting these painful mental arrows into your own heart. You have turned a moment of discomfort into a ruined day. Consider another common scenario: social anxiety. You are at a gathering, you tell a joke, and it falls flat. There is a moment of awkward silence. That is the first arrow, the cringe, the feeling of embarrassment. It's a fleeting moment of social pain. But then come the second arrows. For the rest of the evening, your mind tortures you. Everyone here thinks I'm a fool. I'm so awkward. I should just go home. They are probably all talking about how weird I am. The initial, small pain of one awkward moment is magnified into an evening of self-inflicted misery. The suffering you experience comes not from the failed joke, but from the brutal internal commentary that follows. This principle applies to everything. The first arrow is being stuck in traffic. The second arrow is the explosion of rage, the leaning on the horn, the conviction that your entire day is ruined. The first arrow is waking up with a stiff neck. The second arrow is the anxious narrative. I'm getting old. What if this is a serious condition? My workout will be ruined, and I'll lose all my progress. The space between the first arrow's impact and the launching of the second is the most important territory in your psychological life. For many of us, that space is almost non-existent. The reaction is automatic. The goal of mindfulness practice is to wedge that space open. It is to create a pause, a moment of clear seeing, so that we have a choice. The meditation cushion is our training ground for this skill. You sit quietly, following your breath. Suddenly, a sharp pain arises in your knee. That is a first arrow. The unpracticed mind immediately launches a second. This is so annoying. I can't concentrate. My meditation is ruined. Maybe I should just stop. The practiced mind, however, is trained to respond differently. It applies mindfulness. It turns its attention toward the sensation of pain, not with resistance, but with gentle curiosity. Ah, there is pain in the knee. It notices the raw sensations. Is it hot, sharp, dull, throbbing? It watches the sensation without adding a story to it. And in this watching, it notices that the sensation is not solid. It changes, it intensifies, it softens, it moves. By simply observing the first arrow without launching the second, you learn that you can bear the pain. You are building the muscle of non-reactivity. This training translates directly into your life, off the cushion. When that critical email arrives, because you have practiced, you have the ability to pause. You can take a breath. You can feel the heat in your face and the tightness in your chest, the first arrow wand. Simply acknowledge it. Ah, this is the feeling of being criticized. This is unpleasant. By meeting the raw pain with this clear, non-judgmental awareness, you interrupt the habitual chain reaction. You create the space to choose your response, rather than being a victim of your reaction. You might still decide you need to talk to your boss, but you will do so from a place of calm clarity, not from a place of wounded, defensive anger. It is crucial to understand that this teaching is not about emotional suppression. It is not about becoming a cold, unfeeling robot. It is not about pretending that first arrows don't hurt. In fact, it's the opposite. It's about having the courage to fully feel the clean pain of the first arrow without muddying it with the dirty suffering of the second. Consider the profound pain of grief. The loss of a loved one is perhaps the largest first arrow we can ever experience. The pain is immense, and it is natural and necessary to feel it. The wise response is to allow the waves of sorrow to wash over you, to cry, to mourn, to feel the emptiness. This is the healthy processing of a first arrow. The second arrows in grief are the thoughts of self-judgment. I should be stronger than this. I need to get over it. Or the stories that mortgage your future happiness. I will never be happy again. My life is over. These second arrows take the pure, necessary pain of grief and turn it into the prolonged, hopeless state of despair. The teaching invites us to hold our own grief with compassion, to allow ourselves to feel the first arrow completely without adding the cruel burden of the second. This simple parable hands the power back to you. Life will shoot first arrows. They will come in the form of illness, loss, disappointment, and change. That is the nature of the river. But you, and only you, can decide whether to shoot the second arrow. Every moment you pause, breathe, and choose not to add a layer of mental narrative to your pain is an act of profound self-compassion and liberation. You stop being the helpless target of your life's circumstances and become the wise agent of your own inner world. You realize that while you cannot control the rain, you always have the choice to open an umbrella. 5. Acceptance is not defeat, the wisdom of yielding. As we delve deeper into this path of inner freedom, we arrive at a concept that is both profoundly liberating and, especially in Western culture, profoundly misunderstood. That concept is acceptance. Having learned about the second arrow, we understand that our suffering arises not from pain itself, but from our mental reaction to ita resistance, our stories, our fight against reality. The antidote, then, seems to be acceptance. But for many of us, the word itself can land with a thud. It can sound like defeat. It can feel like weakness, passivity, or giving up. Our culture, particularly in America, is built upon the ethos of the fight. We are taught to never say die, to fight for what we believe in, to take control of our destiny, and to overcome obstacles. We celebrate the one who battles against all odds and bends the world to their will. In this context, the idea of accepting a difficult situation, be it an illness, a financial hardship, or an injustice, can feel like a betrayal of our most cherished values. It can feel like we are simply rolling over and letting life crush us. This fundamental misunderstanding is one of the greatest barriers to finding peace. Therefore, before we can embrace the power of acceptance, we must first dismantle what it is not. True acceptance, as taught in the Buddhist tradition, is not resignation, It is not condoning harmful behavior. It is not apathy or inaction. Acceptance is not condoning. If someone is treating you with disrespect, accepting this reality does not mean you approve of their behavior. It does not mean you think it's okay. It simply means you stop arguing with the fact that it is happening. The internal debate, "they shouldn't be acting this way," is a fight with reality. Acceptance means clearly seeing, this is how they are acting. Only from this clear-eyed starting point can you make a wise decision about how to respond, whether to set a boundary, to leave the situation, or to communicate your feelings. Acceptance is not passivity. Imagine receiving a diagnosis for a serious but treatable illness. Denial would be to ignore the doctors, to pretend you are fine, to refuse to even think about it. This is a form of fighting reality. Resignation would be to say, "Well, that's it for me then," and give up all hope. Acceptance is the courageous middle path. It is the act of looking at the diagnosis squarely in the face, acknowledging the fear and the uncertainty, and saying, "Okay, this is the situation. Now, what is the most intelligent and effective plan of action?" Acceptance is the absolute prerequisite for skillful action. You cannot solve a problem that you refuse to fully acknowledge. You cannot find your way out of a forest if you first refuse to admit that you are lost. Acceptance is not weakness. We mistake rigidity for strength. We see the mighty oak tree standing tall and unmoving, and we think, that is strong. We see the supple bamboo bending and yielding in the wind, and we might mistake it for being weak. But when the hurricane comes, the rigid oak cracks and shatters, while the flexible bamboo yields, bends, and survives. True strength lies not in brittle resistance, but in supple resilience. Acceptance is the source of that resilience. So what, then, is acceptance? At its core, acceptance is the act of clear seeing. It is the willingness to experience reality as it is, without the distorting filters of our preferences, our fears, or our desires. It is dropping the mental argument with what has already happened or what is currently happening. The past cannot be changed. The present moment is already here. To argue with it is as futile and as crazy as standing on a beach, shouting at the tide to go back out. Acceptance is simply turning to face the wave that is already arriving. Acceptance is the end of the inner war. Think of the immense amount of energy you expend every day fighting with reality. The frustration in traffic is a war with the reality of the cars around you. The anxiety about a future event is a war with the reality of uncertainty. The regret over a past mistake is a war with the reality that the past is fixed. These are wars that can never, ever be won. Acceptance is a unilateral declaration of peace. It is the laying down of your arms in this exhausting internal conflict, and all the energy that was once consumed by fighting becomes available for healing, for coping, and for wise action. This leads to the most crucial point for our action-oriented minds. Acceptance is the foundation for all effective change. Imagine your life is a journey, and you are using a GPS to navigate. In order to calculate a route to your desired destination, the GPS must first know one thing: your current location. Denial, resistance, and wishful thinking are all ways of lying to your GPS about where you are. "I'm not in debt." You tell it while your bank account says otherwise. "My marriage is fine," you insist, while silence and resentment fill your home. The GPS, given the wrong starting point, can only offer you useless, nonsensical directions. Acceptance is the courageous and honest act of allowing the GPS to pinpoint your exact location. "I am here. I am in debt by this exact amount. I am here. My relationship is struggling in these specific ways. I am here. I am feeling profound grief and loneliness." It may be a painful place to be, but only by acknowledging your true position can you begin to map an effective route forward. Acceptance is what allows the path to reveal itself. We can practice this in our own bodies, in our own breath. When you sit for meditation, you are not trying to force your body into a state of perfect stillness and comfort. You are practicing acceptance. You accept the reality of your body in this moment. You notice the stiffness in your shoulders, the itch on your nose, the feeling of pressure where you are sitting. You don't have to like these sensations. You simply have to allow them to be there, without starting an inner war with them. The breath is our greatest teacher of acceptance. You do not have to do anything to breathe. The body knows how to do it. Life breathes you. Can you feel that? For a moment, just experience the breath as a passive recipient. You are not pulling the breath in, you are receiving it. The air flows in, filling your lungs. You are not pushing the breath out, you are releasing it. You are letting it go. The breath is a continuous, moment-to-moment lesson in the grace of receiving and the wisdom of letting go. This is the physical, felt sense of acceptance. This practice allows us to slowly build the capacity for what is sometimes called radical acceptance, the willingness to accept life entirely on its own terms. This means extending acceptance to the things we find most difficult: injustice, loss, pain, and our own mortality. Again, this does not mean we like these things. It means we stop wasting our precious life energy in the futile, internal argument that they shouldn't exist. By accepting the reality of a great injustice, we can harness our energy to work for change, rather than just being consumed by impotent rage. By accepting the reality of a profound loss, we can allow ourselves to grieve authentically, rather than getting stuck in the second arrow state of believing life is over. Acceptance is your point of power. It is a shift from being the victim of your life to being a student of your life. The person who resists reality is constantly broken by it. The person who practices acceptance learns that reality is a powerful teacher. The ultimate control is found not in the frantic effort to bend the world to your will, but in the quiet, dignified strength of yielding to the truth of the present moment. It is the discovery of the unshakable power that lies in a simple, courageous yes. Yes, this is here now. From that yes, all true wisdom, all effective action, and all lasting peace is born. 6. The breath as an anchor, your shelter in the storm. We have journeyed through some profound and challenging landscapes of the mind. We've examined the universal law of impermanence, the nature of our resistance, the architecture of our clinging, and the wisdom of acceptance. These understandings are like a map and a compass, showing us the terrain and pointing us in the direction of freedom. But when you find yourself in the middle of a mental hurricane, when waves of anxiety, anger, or despair are crashing over you, a map is not enough. You need an anchor. You need a place of refuge, a shelter from the storm. Our minds, by their very nature, are often turbulent places. The Buddha called it the monkey mind, picturing a restless creature, screeching and swinging frantically from one branch of thought to another, never still. One moment, it's tangled in regrets about the past. The next, it's leaping into anxious fantasies about the future. It is agitated by desire, clouded by aversion, and lost in distraction. To live with an untamed mind is to be perpetually at sea in a storm, tossed about by every wave of emotion and every gust of thought, feeling exhausted, overwhelmed, and lost. The question then becomes, in the midst of this chaos, where can we find stability? What can we hold on to that isn't just another fleeting thought or a reactive emotion? The answer offered by 25 centuries of contemplative practice is astonishingly simple and profoundly accessible. It is the breath. Why the breath? Why this simple, repetitive biological function? Because the breath has a unique set of qualities that make it the perfect anchor for the mind. Firstly, it is always with you. Unlike a mantra you have to remember or a visualization you have to create. The breath is an ever-present reality. From the moment of your birth to the moment of your death, it is your constant companion. It asks nothing of you. It requires no special equipment. Wherever you go, your anchor is with you. Secondly, the breath is always in the present moment. This is its secret power. You cannot take a breath that is in the past. You cannot take a breath that is in the future. You can only experience the breath that is happening right now. Therefore, whenever you consciously place your attention on the physical sensations of breathing, you have no choice but to pull your awareness out of the imaginary worlds of past and future and ground it firmly in the reality of the present. It is the most effective and direct portal to the now. Thirdly, the breath is neutral. Thoughts and emotions are often highly charged. A memory can bring sadness, a fantasy can bring longing, a worry can bring fear. Trying to focus on these is like trying to anchor your boat to another, smaller, tossing boat. The breath, however, is just raw, physical sensation. It isn't good or bad. It isn't right or wrong. It simply is. It is a stable, reliable, neutral object upon which to rest your attention when everything else feels volatile. Finally, the breath is the bridge between the conscious and unconscious, between mind and body. It happens on its own, but we can also influence it consciously. This unique position makes it a unifying force. When our mind is racing, our breathing is often shallow and rapid. When our body is tense, our breath is constricted. By bringing a calm, conscious attention to the breath, we send a message of safety and peace throughout our entire nervous system, inviting both the mind and the body to settle. So, how do we use this anchor? Let us practice together right now. This is not about achieving a special state, but about a simple, kind gesture of returning home. First, find a posture that embodies a gentle dignity. You can be sitting in a chair, with your feet flat on the floor, or on a cushion on the ground. The key is to have your spine relatively straight, but not rigid like a mountain. Solid and grounded, yet relaxed. Let your hands rest easily in your lap. Allow your eyes to gently close, or if you prefer, gaze softly at a spot on the floor a few feet in front of you. Now, set a simple intention. The intention is not to clear your mind or to stop your thoughts. That is an act of aggression against the mind. The intention is simply to be present, to give yourself this gift of quiet attention for a few moments. It is an act of kindness. Bring your awareness into your body and begin to search for the physical sensations of breathing. Where do you feel the breath most vividly? Perhaps it's the cool touch of the air as it enters your nostrils and the warm touch as it leaves. Perhaps it's the gentle, rhythmic rise and fall of your chest. Or maybe you feel it deeper, in the expansion and contraction of your abdomen or belly. There is no right or wrong place. Simply choose one spot to be your home base, the place where you will drop your anchor. Now, just as you would gently rest your hand on a trusted friend's shoulder, gently rest your attention on the sensations of the breath in your chosen spot. Don't try to control the breath or change it. Let the body breathe all by itself. Your only job is to feel it. Feel the entire journey of one single in-breath, from its very beginning to its very end. Notice the brief pause that follows. Then, feel the entire journey of the out-breath as it releases and dissolves. Just this one breath, and now this one. And now, for the most important instruction of all. Sooner or later, your mind will wander. This is not a mistake. It is not a sign that you are a bad meditator. It is simply what minds do. The moment you notice your mind has wandered off into a thought, a memory, a sound, or a plan, you have just experienced a moment of mindfulness. You have woken up. When this happens, practice this simple, three-step return. 1. Notice. Gently and without any judgment, recognize that the mind has wandered from the anchor. You might say to yourself silently, the mind has drifted. 2. Acknowledge, briefly and lightly. You can note where it went. A simple label like thinking, worrying, remembering, or hearing is enough. This isn't about analyzing the thought, but simply identifying it. 3. Return, tenderly and patiently, as if guiding a lost child back home. Gently escort your attention back to the physical sensations of the breath. This process of wandering, noticing, and returning is the meditation. Every single time you return to the breath, you are strengthening the muscle of your attention. Every return is a victory for presence and a moment of profound self-compassion. You are not failing when your mind wanders. You are succeeding every time you kindly bring it back. This is not a practice confined to a meditation cushion. This anchor is portable. It is available to you in every moment of your life. When you feel a surge of anger in a traffic jam, before you lean on the horn, you can take one conscious breath, drop your anchor. When you feel a wave of anxiety before a difficult meeting, you can feel your feet on the floor and follow the arc of one in-breath and one out-breath. Drop your anchor while waiting in line at the grocery store. Instead of reaching for your phone to distract yourself, you can spend 30 seconds resting with your breath. These are micro-sanctuaries of peace you can build into the fabric of a stressful day. The goal is not to eliminate the storms of life. The waves will continue to come. The goal is to become a skilled mariner of your own mind. You are not trying to calm the ocean. You are learning to anchor your boat so that you are not capsized by every wave. You find a place of deep, inner stability from which you can watch the storm of thoughts and emotions pass, knowing that you are safe, that you are grounded, that you are home. So, remember this. No matter how lost you feel, no matter how turbulent the waters become, you always have a refuge. You can always come back to the simple, honest, and profoundly grounding reality of this breath, right here, right now. It is your anchor, it is your shelter, it is always waiting for you. 7. Observing the mind's weather. You are the sky, not the clouds. In our last gathering, we discovered the profound and simple power of the breath as an anchor. We learned how to drop this anchor in the midst of a mental storm, finding a point of stability and presence when waves of thought and emotion threaten to overwhelm us. This is a crucial first step, finding our ground. But the anchor is not just for safety. It is a stable platform from which we can begin a deeper exploration. From the calm harbor of the anchored breath, we can now turn our attention to the storm itself. We can begin to observe the very nature of our mind. To do this, we will use one of the most powerful metaphors in contemplative practice. Your mind, your fundamental awareness, is like the vast, open sky. Your thoughts, your emotions, your moods, and your sensations are like the weather that passes through the sky. Some days, the sky of your mind is clear, blue, and filled with sunlight. These are days of joy, calm, and ease. On other days, it is filled with dark, heavy storm clouds. These are times of anger, sadness, or fear. Sometimes, there are just a few light, wispy clouds of passing thoughts. Sometimes, there is a thick, persistent fog of confusion or fatigue. The weather is constantly changing, but the sky itself, your capacity to be aware, remains untouched, spacious, and constant. The fundamental source of our psychological suffering is that we mistake ourselves for the weather. When a dark cloud of anger billows up in the mind, we don't say, "A feeling of anger is present." We say, "I am angry." We collapse the vastness of our being into that one small, dark cloud. We become the anger. We are fused with it, tossed and turned from within by its turbulent energy. When a wave of sadness washes through us, we don't see it as a temporary emotional climate. We conclude, "I am sad," or worse, "I am a sad person." We identify so completely with the fog that we forget the clear sky ever existed. We believe the weather is who we are. As long as we are identified with the clouds, we have no freedom. We are completely at the mercy of our own mental and emotional patterns. The goal of insight meditation is to practice disidentification. It is the gentle but radical process of shifting your identity from the fleeting weather to the unchanging sky. It is the practice of remembering who you truly are. How do we do this? We begin where we left off, with the anchor of the breath. Find your dignified posture, allow your eyes to close, and take a few moments to consciously drop your anchor. Feel the physical sensations of the in-breath and the out-breath. Allow your mind to settle, even just a little. You are establishing your stable platform. Now, from this place of relative stability, you can begin to widen the aperture of your awareness. The breath remains there in the background, your constant, steady anchor you can return to at any time. But you now intentionally allow the weather of your mind to come into your field of perception. Instead of pushing thoughts and feelings away, you turn toward them with a gentle, scientific curiosity. To aid in this, we use a simple, powerful technique of mental noting or labeling. When a thought or an emotion arises, instead of getting swept up in its story, you create a little bit of space by giving it a soft, silent label. Imagine you are sitting, and a sudden worry about a presentation next week appears. The story might begin, "What if I forget what to say? What if they think my ideas are bad? This could be a disaster." This is getting caught in the cloud. The practice of noting is to catch the very beginning of this process and simply label it. You might silently whisper in your mind, "Worrying, worrying," or "Planning, planning." A feeling of restlessness or impatience arises in your body. I want this meditation to be over. Instead of fighting it or giving into it, you just note, impatience, impatience. A pleasant memory of a past vacation floats into your mind. Remembering, remembering. A sound from outside distracts you. Hearing, hearing. The way you use this label is crucial. It is not a harsh judgment. It is a soft, gentle whisper. The tone is not that of a critical judge, but of a kind naturalist observing wildlife. Ah, here is a specimen of anger. Oh, look, a fleeting thought of self-doubt. The act of naming it does something magical. It separates you from it. The awareness that is able to name the anger cannot be the anger. The consciousness that can label the worry cannot be the worry. In that simple, gentle act of noting, you have stepped out of the cloud. You have become the sky watching the cloud drift by. This is the beginning of disidentification. This is the dawn of freedom. When you can rest as the sky, you begin to notice some remarkable things about the weather of your mind. First, you notice that it is impersonal. Where did that anxious thought actually come from? Did you decide, okay, at 10:15 a.m., I am now going to generate a thought about that embarrassing thing I said last year? Of course not. It simply arose, unbidden, from the vast, mysterious complexity of your mind. Seeing this over and over again, you start to take your thoughts less personally. They are not my thoughts. They are just thoughts. They are ownerless events in consciousness, like birds flying through the sky. Second, you notice that it is impermanent. This is anicca in living practice. When you can stay present with a strong emotion like anger, without either acting on it or suppressing it, you get to witness its entire life cycle. You feel it arise, perhaps as a heat in the chest. You watch it intensify, and if you stay with it, you watch it inevitably begin to soften, change, and dissolve. Nothing is solid, nothing lasts. Seeing this directly, not just as a theory, is profoundly liberating. The next time a difficult emotion arises, a part of you knows, this too shall pass. It robs the emotion of its terrifying sense of permanence. Finally, you notice that your mental states are not solid. A feeling like anxiety, feels like a huge, monolithic monster. But when you observe it closely as the sky, you see it's not one thing. It's a collection of many smaller things. A tightness in the throat, a rapid heartbeat, a coolness in the hands, a series of mental images, a repetitive, internal sentence. By deconstructing the monster into its component parts, it loses its power. It's no longer a solid entity, it's a flickering, changing process. This practice transforms not just your Timmy on the meditation cushion, but your entire life. You are driving, and another car cuts you off. The red, hot cloud of anger appears instantly. But because you have practiced, you have a new choice. You can see the cloud and note, anger is here. This simple acknowledgement can be the difference between a moment of irritation and a full-blown road rage incident. You are a parent, and your child is having a tantrum. You feel the cloud of frustration and helplessness rising. You can note it. Frustration. This allows you to stay grounded as the sky, so you can respond to your child with wisdom, rather than just reacting from inside your own storm. Living as the sky does not mean you will never have another stormy day. The weather of life will continue to happen. There will be grief, there will be fear, there will be anger. The difference is that you no longer have to be a victim of it. You can learn to hold it all within a vast, compassionate, and spacious awareness. You can allow the rain of sadness to fall, knowing it is nourishing the earth of your heart. You can allow the lightning of anger to flash, knowing it is releasing energy and clarifying the air. Remember this, even on the darkest, most overcast day, when the clouds are so thick that you cannot see a single patch of blue, the vast, clear, open sky has not gone anywhere. It is still there, in its entirety, just temporarily obscured. Your practice, your return to the breath, your gentle noting these are the winds that slowly, patiently create breaks in the clouds, reminding you of the boundless blue that is your true nature. You are not the fleeting weather, you are the sky. Your fundamental being is already whole, already peaceful, and already free. This practice is not about becoming something you are not. It is about remembering and resting in the peace that you already are. 8. The story of Kisagotami. Your pain is not alone. We have explored the techniques for anchoring ourselves in the present moment and for observing the weather of our minds from the spacious perspective of the sky. These are invaluable skills. Yet, there are times in life when our pain is so profound, so overwhelming, that it can feel like more than just a passing storm. It can feel like the sky itself has collapsed. In moments of deep grief, acute heartbreak, or devastating failure, a profound sense of isolation can descend upon us. Pain builds walls. It convinces us that our suffering is unique, a special curse reserved only for us. We look out at the world and see others laughing, working, living, and the contrast is agonizing. The world seems to continue on in full, vibrant color, while our own personal world has turned to a silent, monochrome gray. We ask the universe the most painful question of all: why me? This question, born of our anguish, only serves to reinforce the walls, making our prison of sorrow smaller and darker. Today, I want to share a timless story from the Buddhist tradition. It is not a story with complex philosophy, but one that speaks directly to the heart. It is a story intended to dissolve the walls of our personal pain and connect us to a truth that is both heartbreaking and profoundly healing. It is the story of a woman named Kisagotami. Kisagotami lived a life that had finally become full. After years of hoping, she gave birth to a beautiful baby boy. This child was the sun in her sky, the center of her universe. Her love for him was vast and all-consuming. Every moment was filled with the joy and the fierce, protective attachment that only a parent can know. And then, the first arrow struck, and it was the most terrible arrow imaginable. Her young son, just a toddler, fell suddenly ill. and in a matter of hours, he died in her arms. Kisagotami's mind, unable to process this unbearable reality, shattered. She could not accept it. This was not grief as we know it. It was a complete denial of reality. She convinced herself that her son was merely sick and needed medicine. Clutching his small, lifeless body to her chest, she began to walk. She went from house to house in her village, her eyes wide with a desperate, frantic hope. "Please," she begged her neighbors, "give me medicine for my sick son." The villagers, of course, saw the truth. They saw the still, cold body of the child and the madness in the mother's eyes. Some looked away in pity. Others scorned her, telling her to face the facts. "The boy is dead," they said bluntly. "You are mad." With every rejection, the walls around Kisagotami grew higher. She was utterly alone, wandering in a nightmare that no one else could or would enter. Finally, a wise old man, seeing her profound distress, took pity on her. But instead of stating the harsh truth, he offered her a different path. He said, "I do not have the medicine you seek, but I know a man who does. He is the greatest physician of all. Go to the enlightened one, the Buddha. He will have a cure for your son." Kisagotami's heart leaped with a renewed, feverish hope. A cure. She ran through the forest until she came to the place where the Buddha was teaching. She burst through the crowd, fell at his feet, and holding out her son, she cried, "O Blessed One, they say you are a man of great compassion. Please give me the medicine that will cure my boy." The Buddha looked at her, and his gaze was not one of pity or judgment. It was a look of boundless, spacious compassion. He saw her pain, he saw her delusion, and he knew that simply telling her the truth would only wound her further. He had to guide her to discover the truth for herself. "You have done well to come to me," he said, his voice calm and gentle. "There is only one ingredient for the medicine that can help you. I need you to bring me a single tiny mustard seed." Kisagotami's face lit up. A mustard seed! It was the most common thing in the world. "I will get it at once," she exclaimed. "But," the Buddha added, holding up a hand, "there is one condition. The mustard seed must come from a house where no one and no child, no parent, no spouse, no friend, no Savanthas ever died." Certain that this would be an easy task, Kisagotami stood up and began her journey once more. She went to the first grand house at the edge of the village. "The Buddha has sent me," she announced. "I need a mustard seed to make a medicine for my son." "Of course," the woman of the house said, moving to her pantry. "Take all you need." "Thank you," Kisagotami said, her heart pounding with hope. "But first, I must ask, has anyone in this house ever died?" The woman's bright expression fell. A shadow passed over her face. "My dear woman," she said softly, "you touch upon our deepest sorrow. The living are few, but the dead are many. Just last year, we lost our beloved grandmother." Kisagotami, shocked, backed away and went to the next house, and the next, and the next. The story was always the same. "We have plenty of mustard seeds, but our husband died 2 years ago. You can have a seed, but do not remind us of our child who was taken from us. My parents died in this very house." Every door she knocked on opened into a home of loss. Every family she spoke to carried the scar of grief. As the sun began to set, Kisagotami found herself on the edge of the village, weary, empty-handed, and with the cold body of her son still in her arms. She watched the flickering lights of the village lamps being lit, one by one. She watched them burn brightly, and then, one by one, she watched them extinguish. And in that moment, in the gathering darkness, she had a profound insight. Her mind, which had been so narrowly focused on her own, singular pain, "My son is dead," suddenly expanded. She realized that the law of death was not a personal tragedy inflicted only upon her. It was a universal, impersonal law that governed all life. The entire village, the entire world, was a house of loss. Her sorrow was not a wall that separated her from others. It was a bridge that connected her to everyone. With this profound shift in understanding, her frantic clinging softened. The madness left her eyes, replaced by a deep, sober sadness, now held in a vast, compassionate awareness. She understood. She walked to the quiet of the charnel ground, gently laid her son's body down, and returned to the Buddha. "Well," he asked her kindly, "did you bring the mustard seed?" "The work is done, Blessed One," she replied, her voice quiet and clear. "I have seen the truth. The dead are more numerous than the living. The story of Kisagutami is our story. We may not be carrying the literal body of a dead child, but we all clutch the remains of something we have lost. It might be the end of a relationship we thought would last forever. It might be the loss of a career that defined our identity. It might be a frightening medical diagnosis that shatters our sense of invulnerability. It might be the quiet, creeping loss of our own youth. And we, too, run from house to house, seeking a magic cure. We scroll through the houses of social media, seeing only the curated perfection of other people's lives, which makes us feel even more broken and alone. We ask, why me? Why is this happening to me? The Buddha's compassionate task is the practice of mindfulness. It is the task of looking deeply, not just at our own pain, but at the world around us. It is the task of seeing beyond the smiling surfaces and recognizing the shared humanity underneath. When we do this, we find that every single person is carrying their own story of loss, their own invisible sorrows. Every house contains the memory of death. This journey transforms the question. It shifts us from the isolating cry of, "Why me?" to the connecting whisper of, "Just like me." Standing in line at the store, you look at the person ahead of you and realize, just like me, this person has felt fear. You see a couple arguing and think, just like me, they have known heartbreak. You hear of a tragedy on the news and feel, just like me, that family is vulnerable to the pains of this world. This is the birth of true compassion, karuna. Compassion is not pity from a superior position. It is the visceral recognition of our shared condition. It is the understanding that we are all in this together, all subject to the same laws of birth, sickness, old age, and death. The Buddha did not give Kisagutami a medicine to erase her pain. He gave her a path to transform it. He guided her to the realization that her deepest wound was also her deepest connection to all of life. Your pain does not have to be a wall that imprisons you. It can be a doorway. By recognizing the universality of your sorrow, it ceases to be a bitter, personal affliction and becomes a source of profound empathy, wisdom, and connection. You are not alone in your pain. You were never alone. Your sorrow does not separate you from the world. It is the very thing that proves you belong. 9. Impermanence in relationships. Loving in a world of change. There is no area of our lives where we seek permanence more desperately and where we experience the pain of change more acutely than in our relationships. Our connections with partners, family, and dear friends are the soil in which our deepest joys and our most profound sorrows grow. We build our lives around these connections. We seek in them our ultimate refuge, our greatest security, and our most stable sense of self. And herein lies a great paradox. We are trying to build a permanent, unmoving fortress on the most fluid, dynamic, and ever-changing landscape of all. We want love to be a solid, dependable rock, but in its truest form, love is a living, flowing river. Our conventional approach to love, conditioned by society and our own deep-seated fears, is often a blueprint for suffering. We enter into relationships from the perspective of the house of me that we explored earlier. Our partner is not just a separate individual we cherish. They become a critical component of our own psychological structure. They become a main supporting wall in our house. Their love, their approval, their very presence reinforces our sense of being worthy and whole. The thought, "She loves me," translates in our subconscious to, "Therefore, I am lovable." "He is my husband" translates to, "Therefore, I have a secure identity." Because our partner's role becomes so crucial to the structural integrity of our own ego, the prospect of them changing or leaving becomes an existential threat. This fear is the breeding ground for clinging, for upadana. This clinging is not love itself, but a distortion of love, born of fear. It manifests in ways that are all too familiar. It manifests as a low-grade, constant anxiety, a subtle monitoring. Is she still happy with me? Does he still find me attractive? What did that text message mean? We live with a quiet dread that the foundation might shift beneath our feet. It manifests as possessiveness and control. Because we are afraid of the river changing its course, we try to build dams. We might become subtly demanding of our partner's timmy, resentful of their friendships, or critical of their evolving interests, if those interests seem to threaten the stable picture of the us we have created. We try to freeze them in timmy, to make them conform to the role we need them to play in the drama of our own security. And most commonly, it manifests as disappointment. We hold a fixed, idealized image of our partner in our mind's a sandcastle of who we think they are and who they should be, when the real, living, breathing person in front of us inevitably acts in a way that contradicts that image, when they are moody, when they disagree with us, when their dreams and priorities shift. We feel let down, even betrayed. But what has been betrayed? Not the person, but our static, lifeless projection of them. The living river of their being has simply washed over our rigid sandcastle, and we blame the river instead of questioning our choice to build with sand. The wisdom of Buddhism offers a different way, a path to a love that is more resilient, more spacious, and ultimately more real. It is the path of loving with open hands. It asks us to dismantle the architecture of fear and possession, and to build our connections on the foundation of acceptance and freedom. Instead of seeing a relationship as a fusion of two entities into one solid block, imagine it as two distinct rivers flowing side by side. Each river has its own source, its own currents, its own unique journey. For a timmy, they flow together, their waters mingling, sharing a common course. Somatims, they are very close, in a deep, powerful channel. At other tims, the landscape might cause them to diverge slightly, each exploring its own path, yet still within sight of the other. The goal is not for one river to consume the other, or to force it into a concrete channel. The goal is to honor the integrity of each river while cherishing the beauty of their shared journey. This perspective changes everything. When you understand that your partner is an entire, dynamic universe of their own, constantly changing just as you are, you stop trying to control them. You become more curious than you are demanding. When they express a new interest or a changing belief, the clinging mind panics. This is not who I fell in love with. This threatens our stability. The wise mind, the mind that understands impermanence, approaches with open curiosity. That's interesting. Tell me more about what that's like for you. You give them the space to be a whole person, not just a character in your life story. This understanding also infuses your relationship with a profound sense of preciousness. The subconscious assumption that our loved ones will always be there, just as they are today, is the source of so much neglect. We put off the kind word, the deep conversation, the expression of gratitude, the visceral understanding of a nikith truth that this person, this relationship, this very moment, is fletingis, a powerful antidote to taking things for granted. It wakes you up. You know that this shared moment is a gift that will not last forever, and so you inhabit it more fully. You listen more deeply. You appreciate more readily. Paradoxically, accepting the impermanent nature of your love makes you a much more present and loving partner. This wisdom is your guide in difficult times. In moments of conflict, instead of reacting from the storm cloud of your own fear and anger, you can learn to speak from the clear sky of your awareness. You can differentiate your story about what happened from what actually happened. You can express your own feelings without making your partner the sole cause of them. And should a relationship come to an end, the ultimate change, this wisdom, is your most compassionate companion. A breakup or a divorce is an immense first arrow of pain. The path of wisdom does not deny this pain. It is real and it must be honored. But this understanding can protect you from the torrent of second arrows. The clinging mind, whose very identity was fused with the relationship, experiences the end as a personal annihilation. It says, "I am nothing without them. My life is over. I have failed." The wise mind, while still feeling the deep sorrow of the loss, has a wider perspective. It understands that a chapter has closed. Two rivers, after flowing together for a beautiful and meaningful time, have now diverged. It is heartbreaking, but it is not the end of your existence. You are the river, not just the temporary confluence. This brings us to the liberating insight of anatta, or no self, in the context of love. If there is no solid, fixed me, and no solid, fixed you, then what is a relationship? It is not a transaction between two static egos. It is a dance. It is a co-created process. It is a we that is constantly being born and reborn in every interaction, every conversation, every shared silence. When you remove the heavy burden of me needing something from you to be complete, a new kind of love emerges. It is not about filling a void in yourself. It is about supporting another being on their journey and being supported in turn. It is about bearing witness to each other's unfolding with compassion and encouragement. This is the freedom to truly love. It is moving from a love based on scarcity and fear to a love based on spaciousness and trust. It is the understanding that a relationship thrives not by being held in a tight fist, but by being cradled in open hands. By accepting the impermanence of all things, we are liberated from the anxious need to control, and we are freed to participate in the beautiful, unpredictable, and sacred dance of connection. The wisdom of impermanence does not kill love, it purifies it. It strips away the ego and the fear, leaving behind what is most true and most essential. A deep, clear, and grateful appreciation for the precious, fleeting gift of walking this path with another. 10. The gardener's wisdom, cultivating a life of change. As we have journeyed together, we have learned to see life as a flowing river and our minds as the ever-changing weather. We have practiced anchoring ourselves in the storm and accepting the natural, unstoppable flow of change. A question, however, may naturally arise in a mind accustomed to action and intention. Does this mean we are simply passive observers? Does embracing impermanence mean we let the currents of life carry us wherever they may, without any direction? Does it mean we simply let the weeds of our habitual tendencies take over the landscape of our mind? This is a crucial point, for the wisdom of impermanence does not lead to a path of passive resignation. It leads to a path of wise and skillful action. To understand our role within this ever-changing world, we will now shift our central metaphor. We are not merely passengers on a river. We can become gardeners of our own lives. Your mind is your garden, and you are its tender, dedicated caretaker. To grasp this, let us contrast two approaches to gardening. First, imagine a foolish engineer. This engineer wants to create the perfect garden, one that is completely under their control and immune to change. They pave the ground with concrete, install plastic flowers that never fade, and plant artificial trees that never lose their leaves. They install powerful heat lamps to defy the winter chill and a complex irrigation system to make rain irrelevant. Their garden is predictable, stable, and permanent. It is also sterile, lifeless, and utterly devoid of beauty and vitality. It is a monument to the ego's fearful demand for control. This is how many of us try to manage our lives by creating rigid, artificial structures and resisting the natural unfolding of things. Now, imagine a wise gardener. The wise gardener operates from a place of deep respect for nature. They do not see the seasons, the weather, or the fundamental nature of the soil as enemies to be conquered. They see them as realities to be worked with. The gardener's wisdom lies not in defying nature, but in skillfully collaborating with it. They understand that their power lies not in controlling the entire ecosystem, but in cultivating the conditions that allow for beauty and nourishment to arise. This is the path of wise effort. This is how we can learn to live. Let's walk through the principles of the wise gardener and see how they apply to cultivating the garden of our mind and life. First, the gardener prepares the soil. A gardener does not curse the rocky, clay-filled plot of land they are given. They accept it as their starting point. Then, they begin the patient work of improving it. They remove the largest stones. They enrich the soil with compost and nutrients. They create a fertile ground for future growth. In our lives, this is the practice of sila, or ethical conduct. The soil we are given is our current conditioning, our karmic inheritance. We cannot change the past that created it, but we can absolutely begin to enrich it right now. Every act of kindness, every honest word, every gesture of generosity is like adding rich compost to the soil of our mind. By living with integrity, we are not following arbitrary rules. We are skillfully preparing the ground of our being, making it a more hospitable place for peace and wisdom to grow. Second, the gardener plants seeds with intention. A garden does not appear by accident. The gardener makes conscious choices about what they want to cultivate. They plant the seeds of nourishing vegetables and beautiful flowers, not the seeds of poison ivy or thorny weeds. In every moment of our lives, we are planting seeds in the garden of our mind. An insult is offered to you. In that moment, you have a choice. Do you plant the seed of anger and retaliation, which will grow into a thorny bush of conflict? Or do you plant the seed of patience and understanding, which can grow into the flower of compassion? When you feel the pull of envy, do you plant the seed of resentment, or the seed of appreciating your own blessings? Your intentions, your volitional actions, are the seeds that will determine the future character of your garden. Third, the gardener tends to the garden with mindful effort. This is where the work of meditation and mindfulness comes to life. The gardener knows that planting seeds is not enough. They must be tended. This involves two key activities: watering and weeding. Watering is the conscious cultivation of positive, wholesome states. Through practices like loving kindness meditation, gratitude reflections, and focusing on the beautiful qualities in others, we are actively watering the seeds of joy, compassion, and connection. We are giving our energy to that which we want to see flourish. Weeding is the practice of dealing with unwholesome states, the weeds of greed, hatred, jealousy, and delusion. The wise gardener does not hate the weeds. Hating them would just be planting more seeds of aversion. Instead, they see the weeds with clarity. They understand that if left untended, these weeds will choke the life from the vegetables and flowers. So, with patient, persistent, non-violent effort, they gently pull them out. When an unwholesome thought of anger or greed arises in your mind, the practice is to see it clearly, to recognize it as a weed, and to gently withdraw your attention from it. You stop watering it with your focus. Without your energy, the weed will wither and die. Finally, the gardener trusts the seasons and the process. This is the culmination of their wisdom. The gardener knows they cannot stand over a seed and command it to sprout. They cannot scream at a bud to force it to blossom. They cannot demand that a tomato ripen in the middle of winter. The gardener does their part. They prepare the soil, plant the seed, water, and weed. Then they step back and trust in a process larger than themselves. They have patience. They have faith in the natural laws of growth. This is how we must approach our own lives and our spiritual practice. There will be seasons. There will be a springtime in your practice, when new insights are sprouting everywhere and you feel full of hope and energy. There will be a long, glorious summer when your practice is flourishing and you are reaping the fruits of joy and peace. There will be an autumn, a time of letting go, when old identities and beliefs begin to fall away like leaves from the trees. And there will be a winter, when the garden of your mind may seem barren, cold, and still. You may feel like nothing is happening, that you have lost your way. The wise gardener does not despair in winter. They know that this fallow period is a necessary part of the cycle. They know that deep beneath the frozen surface, life is gathering its strength for the next spring. The harvest of a wisely tended garden is not a static picture of perfection. It is a living, breathing testament to a successful collaboration with reality. The harvest is the joy of the beautiful flower, made more precious by the memory of the patient waiting. It is the nourishment of the ripe fruit, made more satisfying by the knowledge of the work that went into it. And ultimately, the greatest harvest is the wisdom gained from understanding the entire cyclical process of life, death, and renewal. Your life is a sacred garden, entrusted to your care. You are not a helpless victim of its weather, nor are you an all-powerful engineer who can defy its laws. You are its caretaker. Your power lies not in controlling the final outcome, but in the conscious, loving intention you bring to the process, moment by moment. See the richness of the soil you can create through your actions. See the power of the seeds you plant with your intentions. See the gentle, patient work of watering the wholesome and weeding the unwholesome. And see the deep wisdom in trusting the seasons of your own becoming. What will you cultivate in your garden today? 11. Impermanence of the self, the ultimate liberation. We have embarked on a profound journey together. We have learned to see the impermanent nature of our possessions. Like the cracked teacup, we have felt the ever-changing flow of our experiences in the river of now. We have explored the transient beauty of our relationships and learned to cultivate the garden of our lives with wise acceptance of the seasons. Through all of this, we have been working to loosen our grip on the things that change. Yet, throughout this entire process, most of us hold on to one thing as solid, constant, and real. There is a silent, foundational assumption that underlies all of our experience, the assumption of I. We believe that while everything else may be a fleeting show, there is a permanent watcher in the audience. While the body ages, relationships shift, and thoughts come and go, we feel that I am the stable entity to whom all this is happening. I am the thinker of the thoughts. I am the feeler of the feelings. I am the unchanging subject at the center of a world of changing objects. Today, we will gently but directly investigate this final bastion of permanence. We will ask the most radical question on the spiritual path. What if this I, this core sense of a separate self, is also not what it seems? What if the watcher is also part of the stream? What if the one we have been trying to protect and defend all our lives is itself the most subtle and profound illusion of all? This inquiry may feel unsettling at first, but I invite you to approach it with courage and curiosity, for within it lies the key to the ultimate liberation. To begin, we must understand how this sense of a solid self is created. We don't find a self. Our mind builds one, moment by moment. The mind is a relentless, I-making machine. It takes the raw, chaotic data of experience and weaves it into a coherent story with a main character, me. Think of your sense of self like a social media profile that your mind is constantly curating. It gathers memories, photos from the past, lists preferences, likes and dislikes, and formulates a bio. I am a kind person. I am a successful lawyer. I am anxious. It creates a narrative, a brand identity that gives the illusion of a solid, continuous person. But this profile is not a real entity. It is a collection of data points, beliefs, and stories that are themselves constantly being updated and edited. Or imagine your mind as a large corporation, me incorporated. We operate under the assumption that there is a permanent CEO sitting in a corner office in our head, making all the executive decisions. But when we use the tool of mindfulness to actually go inside and look for this CEO, we find the office is empty. All we find are various departments operating in constant flux. The thinking department sending out memos, the feeling department issuing emotional press releases, the sensory department gathering raw data from the field. They all interact and influence each other, creating the functioning of the corporation, but there is no single, unchanging boss in charge. This is not just a theory. You can conduct this investigation for yourself right now. Let's go looking for this fixed, permanent self. Let's start with the body. Are you your body? Your body is in a state of radical flux. Millions of cells have died and been replaced since you began reading this sentence. The body you have today is not the body you had 10 years ago, nor the body you will have in 10 years. The body is a process, not a static thing. So, a permanent self cannot be found in an impermanent body. Okay, then are you your feelings? One moment you feel happy, the next you feel bored, the next you feel sad. Feelings are like the weather. As we've discussed, they are transient atmospheric conditions in the mind. If you were your feelings, your identity would vanish every timmy your mood changed. So, a permanent self cannot be found in fleeting emotions. Well, surely you are your thoughts. But are you? Did you consciously decide to have the very last thought that popped into your head? For the most part, thoughts arise and dissolve on their own, like bubbles rising to the surface of a pond. Furthermore, as we learned in our meditation practice, you can observe your thoughts. You can watch them come and go. The watcher cannot be the thing that is being watched. So, you are not your thoughts. What's left? Perhaps the self is your story, your memories, your personality. But a story is a narrative, a mental construction of past events. It's a useful summary, but it's not a living entity in the present moment. And even our stories change as we age and reinterpret our past through the lens of new wisdom. Your personality, too, is not fixed. You behave differently with your boss than you do with your child or your best friend. It is a fluid pattern of responses, not a solid trait. After this thorough investigation, we are left with a startling conclusion. We have looked for a solid, independent, unchanging self in the body, in feelings, in thoughts, and in our stories, and we cannot find one. What we find instead is a dynamic, interdependent, and ceaselessly changing process of mind and body. This direct seeing is the experience of anatta, or no self. The immediate reaction to this idea can be fear. If I am not a solid self, am I nothing? Do I not exist? This is a natural fear, but it is based on a misunderstanding. The realization of no self is not an annihilation, it is an expansion. It is the difference between experiencing yourself as a single, tight, anxious knot in a vast net, versus realizing that you are the entire, interconnected, flexible net itself. It is a shift from identifying as a separate, fragile noun to experiencing yourself as a dynamic, flowing verbas, being, seeing, experiencing. When this shift begins to happen, the immense lifelong effort of being me starts to relax. The constant project of defending the ego, polishing the story of me, managing others' impressions of me, and worrying about the future of me is seen for what it is, an exhausting and unnecessary burden. The energy that was once bound up in maintaining this fictional self is liberated. This liberation transforms the very roots of our suffering. It brings freedom from fear. The separate ego is the part of us that is terrified. It is afraid of criticism because that threatens its story of being good. It is afraid of failure because that threatens its story of being successful. and most of all, it is terrified of death, because that is the ultimate threat to its existence. When our identification with this fragile construct loosens, its fears no longer have the same power. The sting of criticism is lessened when there is no solid me to be stung. The terror of death is transformed when we see ourselves not as a solid entity that will be erased, but as a process that will continue to change and flow in new forms. It brings freedom from envy and comparison. The separate self is a comparing machine. It constantly measures itself against others. Am I smarter? Am I wealthier? Am I happier? This is a game that can never be won and is a constant source of dissatisfaction. When we see the illusory nature of both me and you, this painful game begins to seem pointless. And most importantly, it gives birth to true, boundless compassion. As long as there is a solid wall between me and you, empathy is limited. But when the illusion of the separate self becomes transparent, the boundaries become porous. Your pain is no longer entirely separate from my pain. Your joy touches me more directly. The understanding we found in the story of Kisagotami is now realized at its deepest root. We are not just like each other. At the most fundamental level of flowing, interconnected processes, we are each other. The path of letting go begins with our attachment to things. It progresses to our attachment to experiences and to people. The final, ultimate act of letting go is to gently release our fierce, lifelong grip on the I who is doing all the clinging. Imagine you have been clenching your fist your entire life, believing you are protecting something incredibly precious inside. The clenching is tense, tiring, and painful. The teaching of no self is the invitation to finally find the courage to open your hand. And when you do, you discover two truths. Your hand was empty all along, and the pain was coming from the clenching itself. The self you have worked so hard to build and protect is not a fortress to be defended. It is a doorway to be walked through. When you step through that door, you do not vanish into nothingness. You dissolve into everything. You merge with the vast, intelligent, and beautiful dance of life itself. This is not a loss of self. It is the liberation of finding you are, and have always been, so much more. 12. Finding joy in the fleeting, the beauty of the cherry blossom. After our deep dive into the impermanence of all things, even our very sense of self, a certain shadow of melancholy might arise. A question may linger in the mind. If everything is in flux, if nothing lasts, if even the I is a fleeting process, then what is the point? Is joy simply a cruel trick played on us by our senses? Is the pursuit of happiness a fool's game in a universe defined by dissolution? These are valid questions that arise from a mind grappling with these profound truths. But the wisdom of the Buddha points to a conclusion that is the exact opposite of nihilism or despair. The teaching of impermanence, when its implications are fully embraced, does not extinguish our joy. It refines it. It clarifies it. It elevates it from something we desperately try to possess into something we can fully and gracefully experience. It is the secret ingredient that makes life not just bearable, but exquisitely beautiful. To understand this, we can look to the wisdom embodied in the symbol of the cherry blossom. In many Eastern cultures, particularly in Japan, the cherry blossom is the most beloved of all flowers. Every spring, millions of people gather to celebrate its brief and glorious appearance. But here is the key. It is beloved not in spite of its short life, but precisely because of it. Its beauty is inseparable from its brevity. The knowledge that these perfect, delicate flowers will be gone in a week or two, scattered by the wind and rain, is what makes the act of seeing them so poignant, so precious, and so profound. No one curses the cherry blossom for not lasting all summer. To do so would be to miss the point entirely. Its fleeting nature is its teaching. Now, contrast this with our typical Western approach to happiness. We treat happiness not as a fleeting blossom to be appreciated, but as a commodity to be acquired and hoarded. We embark on a happiness project. We believe that if we can just get the right job, buy the right house, find the perfect partner, and achieve the ideal body, we will capture happiness and make it a permanent feature of our lives. When a moment of genuine joy does arrive, the first arrow of a pleasant experiencer, clinging mind immediately shoots the second arrow of fear. We taste a delicious meal, and halfway through, a thought arises, "Oh, it's almost finished." We experience a moment of profound connection with a loved one, and a subtle anxiety follows. What if this changes? What if this ends? Our mind acts like a frantic photographer, trying to capture and freeze every happy moment, so worried about possessing it for the future that we fail to actually live inside it in the present. In our desperate attempt to own our joy, we strangle it. The wisdom of the cherry blossom offers a different way. It invites us to change our relationship with joy, from one of possession to one of appreciation. When you truly know, in your bones, that a beautiful experience is transient, you pay more attention. You don't take it for granted. You dive into it with your whole being. You savor the complex flavors of that delicious meal because you know the plate will soon be empty. You listen with your entire body to a breathtaking piece of music because you know the silence that will follow is part of the composition. You look into the eyes of a laughing friend and feel a surge of love, made all the more potent by the unspoken awareness that this shared life is a precious, unrepeatable gift. The awareness of the end of the song makes you listen more intently to the notes being played right now. This is the ground for true gratitude. When we stop demanding permanence from life, we can begin to receive its momentary gifts with an open and thankful heart. The warmth of the sun on our skin, the taste of clean water when we are thirsty, the shared smile with a stranger, the quiet beauty of a tree outside our window, these cease to be mundane background details. They reveal themselves as what they truly are, small, unrepeatable miracles. The world becomes re-enchanted. Life, in all its fleeting detail, becomes a continuous cause for quiet celebration. This mindset also transforms how we handle the passing of joy. When a pleasant experience comes to its natural end, the clinging mind mourns and grasps, trying to pull it back. The wise mind, the cherry blossom mind, can let it go with a sense of graceful completion. We can be thankful for the gift of its presence, rather than bitter about its absence. It is the difference between watching a beautiful bird take flight and feeling a sense of wonder, versus trying to trap it in a cage so you can have it forever, only to see its spirit die. To truly love life, you must be willing to let it be free, which means letting it change and pass. We can cultivate this cherry blossom mind in our daily lives. The next Timmy you drink a cup of coffee or tea, try to approach it not as a routine habit, but as a unique sensory event. Feel the weight and warmth of the cup in your hands. See the rich color of the liquid. Inhale its aroma before you drink. And when you take a sip, truly taste it. Experience it as if it were the first and last cup of tea you will ever drink. In that moment of total presence, you will find more joy in that simple act than in 1,000 cups drunk mindlessly. We can also learn to find beauty not just in moments of peak perfection, but in the entire arc of becoming and dissolving. The Japanese have an aesthetic concept called wabi-sabi, which is the art of finding beauty in things that are imperfect, impermanent, and incomplete. It is the beauty of the cracked teacup, whose flaw tells the story of its life. It is the beauty of a weathered wooden fence, or the single, tenacious weed growing through a crack in the pavement. It teaches us to relax our demand for polished perfection and to find joy in the authentic, messy, and beautiful process of life as it actually is. Our culture is obsessed with beginnings, New Year's resolutions, the start of a new relationship, the launch of a new project. The wisdom of impermanence teaches us to also honor and find beauty in endings. A glorious sunset is a beautiful ending to the day. The vibrant colors of autumn are a beautiful ending to the life of the leaves. There is a deep satisfaction in the peaceful completion of a task. Endings are not failures of life to be permanent. They are the natural and necessary clearing of the ground that allows for new beginnings to sprout. Therefore, the teaching of impermanence is not a morbid or depressing philosophy. It is the very key that unlocks the door to a life of vibrant, authentic joy. The frantic chase after a permanent happiness that you can own and control is the direct path to suffering. The gentle, mindful embrace of the transient, unownable beauty of each passing moment is the direct path to peace and gratitude. Life, like the cherry blossom, is not a static object to be possessed. It is a brief and glorious performance. It is a dance of arising and passing away. The point is not to freeze the dance and hold the dancers in place. The point is to join the dance. The point is to feel the music, to move with the rhythm, and to bow with grace when the song comes to an end. This is the art of finding joy, not in spite of life's fleeting nature, but because of it. 13. The trap of if only, releasing regret and anxiety. We have explored the profound beauty that arises when we embrace the fleeting nature of life, the wisdom of the cherry blossom. We have seen that joy is not a destination to be reached or a treasure to be possessed, but a quality of presence that we can bring to each passing moment. And yet, for so many of us, this present moment is a difficult place to inhabit. Our minds are often haunted houses, occupied by the ghosts of the past and stalked by the phantoms of the future. There is a particular phrase, a kind of dark incantation, that summons these apparitions. It is the phrase, if only. These two simple words are the key to a self-made prison. If only, we whisper, and we are immediately transported back in Timmy, forced to relive a past mistake, a missed opportunity, a painful memory. If only I had taken that other job. If only I hadn't said that hurtful thing. If only I had known then what I know now. This is the realm of regret. Then we flip the coin. If only, we pray, and we are catapulted into an imaginary future, wrestling with events that have not yet occurred. If only I can get that promotion, then I'll be happy. If only my children stay safe and healthy. If only this presentation goes perfectly. This is the realm of anxiety. Whether our focus is backward or forward, the trap of if only achieves the same result. It steals the present moment from us. It is a profound act of rebellion against the law of impermanence. It is a refusal to accept the reality of the river of now, that the past is unchangeably gone and the future is uncontrollably unknown. Let us examine these two phantoms, regret and anxiety, and learn how we can gently exorcise them from the haunted house of our mind. First, let us turn to the ghost of the past, the heavy, chained ball of regret. Regret is more than just the memory of a painful event. The painful event was the first arrow. Regret is the second arrow we shoot at ourselves, over and over again. It is the story we endlessly repeat about how the past should have been different. The person caught in the grip of regret is the backward swimmer we spoke of, exhausting all their life energy, trying to swim against the powerful current of Timmy, trying to reach a shore that no longer exists. This struggle is based on a cognitive distortion. We look back at a past decision with the full knowledge of its consequences, and we judge our past self harshly for not knowing what we know now. We create a fantasy of an alternate timeline where we made the right choice and everything turned out perfectly, but this is a complete fiction. We have no idea what unforeseen challenges or sorrows that other path may have held. We are torturing ourselves in the present for a fantasy about the past. So, how do we begin to release the chains of regret? The path is not one of forgetting or pretending it didn't happen. It is one of wise and compassionate integration. First, we must acknowledge the pain. We must be willing to feel the first arrow, of the past event. Yes, a mistake was made. Yes, it led to suffering for ourselves or others. We meet this reality with kindness, not with the harsh whip of self-judgment. That was a painful Tim. I feel sorrow for the choice that was made. Second, we must extract the wisdom. The past is not meant to be a prison. It is meant to be a classroom. The only sane reason to look backward is to learn something that will help us navigate the present more skillfully. We can ask ourselves, what did that experience teach me? What lesson can I carry forward? When we can harvest a lesson from a mistake, the mistake is transformed from a source of shame into a source of wisdom. We look at the wake of our boat, not to curse where we have been, but to learn how to steer better from this moment on. Third, we practice self-forgiveness. This is often the hardest step. We can be far crueler to ourselves than we would ever be to a friend. The practice of metta, or loving kindness, must be extended to ourselves. You can place a hand on your heart and offer yourself these words. I did the best I could at that Timmy, with the understanding, the wisdom, and the resources I had available. May I forgive myself. May I release this burden. Forgiveness is not about condoning a harmful act. It is about making the conscious choice to stop punishing yourself for it forever. It is an act of profound self-compassion. Now let us turn to the other side of the coin, the phantom of the future, the suffocating cage of anxiety. If regret is the struggle with a past we cannot change, anxiety is the struggle with a future we cannot control. It is the act of pre-suffering. We experience the emotional and physical turmoil of negative events that have not happened and, in all likelihood, will never happen. We are the frantic dam builder, trying to channel and control the vast, unpredictable ocean of what is to come. This struggle is based on the illusion of control. We believe that if we just worry enough, anticipate every possible pitfall, and play out every worst-case scenario in our minds, we can somehow prevent bad things from happening. But this is not true. The universe is far too complex and chaotic to be tamed by our thoughts. All our worrying accomplishes is the theft of our own peace in the only moment we ever actually have, the present. How then do we learn to unlock the cage of anxiety? First, we must name the phantom. As we learned in our practice of observing the mind, naming a mental state robs it of its power. When you feel your mind begin to spin into a worry loop, you can gently note, this is worry, or this is catastrophizing. By labeling the activity, you disidentify from it. You are no longer in the anxiety. You are the awareness that is observing the anxiety. This creates a crucial space of clarity. Second, we must distinguish wise planning from neurotic worrying. Wise planning is a constructive activity done in the present moment. You have a test next week, so you create a study schedule today. That is wise planning. Worrying is when you have already created the schedule, but you continue to mentally rehearse failing the test over and over again. Worrying is a destructive, repetitive loop that leads to no skillful action. When you find yourself caught in a future-oriented thought, ask yourself this key question. Is this thought leading me to a wise action I can take right now, or is it simply spinning its wheels? If it is the latter, it is a phantom worth releasing. Third, we must come back to our senses. Anxiety is a state that lives almost entirely in the head, in the realm of abstract thought. The most powerful antidote is to ground ourselves in the tangible reality of the present moment through our senses. When you feel anxiety rising, deliberately pull your attention out of your thoughts and into your body. Feel your feet planted firmly on the floor. Name 5 things you can see in the room around you. Notice 4 physical sensations: the feeling of your clothes on your skin, the chair supporting you, the air on your cheek. Listen for 3 distinct sounds. This simple practice yanks your awareness out of the imaginary future and anchors it in the undeniable reality of the here and now. Finally, we must trust the gardener. As we explored, we can prepare the soil, and plant the seeds with our wise intentions and actions today, but we cannot control next week's weather. Anxiety is the attempt to control the weather. The practice is to do your part today with diligence and care, and then to trust that you have the inner resources and resilience to meet the future when and if it arrives. The trap of "if only" keeps us forever bound to what is not real. It chains us to a past that is a ghost and locks us in a future that is a phantom. The path to freedom is the path back to this moment. Releasing regret does not mean erasing your past. It means learning from it with wisdom and forgiving it with compassion. Releasing anxiety does not mean being reckless or naive. It means acting skillfully in the present and trusting your capacity to meet what comes. Every conscious breath you take is a step out of the haunted house of your mind and into the fresh, clear air of the only moment that has ever truly existed. This one. 14. Radical acceptance in action. Befriending the unwanted. We have explored the principle of acceptance as clear seeing, as the wise acknowledgement of what is. We understand that we cannot navigate our lives effectively until we first admit where we are on the map. This is a foundational step. But what happens when our location on the map is a place of profound and ongoing pain? What happens when the reality we must accept is not a temporary inconvenience like a traffic jam, but a chronic illness, a permanent loss, a deep-seated addiction, or a personal trait that causes us immense shame? This is where we must move beyond simple mental acknowledgement and into the courageous heart of the practice known as radical acceptance. The word radical here means going to the root. This is an acceptance that permeates every level of our being, mind, heart, and body. It is not a grim, joyless resignation to a miserable fate. It is the brave, transformative act of making peace with your own life, exactly as it is. It is the decision to end the inner war. For any unwanted, painful reality in our lives, a part of us maintains a constant underlying resistance. It is a quiet or loud internal voice that is always saying, "Number, this shouldn't be happening. I don't want this. This isn't fair." This inner "no" is the source of so much of our chronic suffering. It is a state of perpetual inner conflict. Imagine trying to hold a beach ball underwater. It takes a tremendous and continuous expenditure of energy. Your muscles are tense, your focus is narrowed, and you are exhausted. Yet, the ball constantly strains to pop up to the surface. This is a perfect metaphor for living in resistance to an unavoidable reality. The reality is the beach ball. Our no is the force holding it down. The tension, the stress, and the exhaustion are our daily experience. Let's look at this in action. For someone living with chronic pain, the physical sensation is the first arrow. It is the unavoidable reality. The second arrow, the source of immense suffering, is the mind's constant no to the pain. "I hate this feeling. It's ruining my life. I can't stand it." This mental resistance creates physical tension in the body, which often constricts the muscles around the painful area, actually intensifying the first arrow of the pain itself. The war against the pain becomes more painful than the pain itself. Consider a past betrayal that you cannot get over. The event itself is in the past, but the inner "no, that should not have happened" keeps the wound open and raw. This resistance prevents healing, locking us in a cycle of resentment and bitterness. We are holding the hot coal of our anger, believing the other person is being burned. Or consider an aspect of yourself that you dislike, perhaps a quick temper, a pattern of procrastination, or a deep-seated social anxiety. The trait itself is the first arrow. The second arrow is the layer of shame and self-hatred, the inner "no, I shouldn't be this way." This self-rejection doesn't help change the trait. It often makes it worse, adding a crippling burden of inadequacy to the original difficulty. The path to peace, then, is the courageous journey from no to a profound, wholehearted yes. How do we begin this seemingly impossible task? This is not simply an intellectual exercise. Radical acceptance must be felt in the body. The practice begins by finding where the resistance, the no, lives within you. When you think of this difficult situation, where do you feel it? Is it a tightening in your stomach, a clenching in your jaw, a heavy weight in your chest, a constriction in your throat? First, just acknowledge the physical signature of your resistance. Next, you use the breath as a tool for softening. This is not an aggressive act of trying to force the tension to go away. It is a gentle offering. As you breathe in, you can acknowledge the tightness. Ah, there is the knot in my stomach. As you breathe out, you can imagine sending a wave of warmth, space, and allowing into that clenched place. You are not demanding that it dissolve. You are simply inviting it to soften, creating a space around it. From here, you can introduce the gentle, silent whisper of yes. This is not a yes, I love this pain, or yes, this betrayal was great. It is a much simpler, more profound yes. It is yes, I acknowledge that this is my reality in this moment. I allow this experience to be here. When you feel physical pain, you can breathe with it and whisper, yes, this sensation is here. I am letting it be. When a wave of profound sadness arises, yes, this is sadness. I make room for it now. This, yes, is the sound of you stopping the fight. It is the sound of the muscles relaxing after trying to hold the beach ball underwater. To make this practice more systematic, we can use a powerful tool, a guided meditation known as RAIN, a term beautifully articulated by the teacher Tara Brach. RAIN is an acronym for 4 steps of compassionate attention. R is for recognize. This is the moment of clear seeing. You simply recognize what is happening inside you. You name it gently. Fear is here. This is shame. Pain in my hip. Judgmental thoughts. A is for allow. This is the practice of letting the experience be there, just as it is. It's the whisper of yes. You give it permission to exist. You stop fighting it. You let the beach ball surface. I is for investigate. With a gentle, non-judgmental curiosity, you investigate the experience. What does this feeling actually feel like in the body? Is it heavy or light, hot or cold, vibrating or still? What does this part of me believe? What does it want or need from me? This is not an intellectual analysis. It is an intimate, embodied listening. You are turning toward the unwanted guest with kindness, trying to understand it. N is for nurture. This is the crucial step of bringing active compassion to yourself. After recognizing, allowing, and investigating the painful experience, you offer yourself a gesture of kindness. You might place a hand over your heart. You might whisper words you would offer to a dear friend. This is so difficult. It's okay. May I be kind to myself in this moment. This self-compassion is what gives us the strength and safety to truly accept the most difficult truths. Let's imagine applying RAIN to losing a job. The first arrow is the news. Recognize, panic, fear, anger, shame, allow. Okay, all of this is here. I'm not going to push it away. I'm just going to let it be for a moment. Investigate. The shame feels like a hot flush in my face. The fear is a cold knot in my stomach. It believes I'm a failure and will never work again. Nurture. Hand on your heart. This is a huge shock and it's scary. Of course you feel this way. You are more than this job. You are resilient. From this nurtured place, where the storm of emotion has been met with acceptance, you can then move to wise action, updating your resume, calling a friend without the toxic fuel of panic. The great paradox of radical acceptance is that the moment we can fully accept a situation, an emotion, or a sensation, just as it is, it begins to lose its tyrannical power over us. The moment we stop fighting the pain, we stop creating the secondary suffering of resistance. And often, the primary pain itself lessens. By fully allowing our anxiety, it no longer has the added fuel of our hatred for it, and it can move through us more quickly. By befriending our pain, we integrate it, and it ceases to be a monstrous other. This is not a one-time fix. It is a lifelong practice. It is the moment-to-moment choice to end the war and make peace with reality. The energy we reclaim from this inner battle is astonishing. It becomes available for living, for loving, for creating, and for healing. You do not have to like the unwanted circumstances of your life, but by learning to meet them with a radical, courageous, and compassionate yes, you can discover a peace that is not dependent on life being easy. You can find a freedom that is rooted not in changing your circumstances, but in changing your relationship to them. This is the profound, unshakable peace of what is. 15. The nature of thoughts. You are not your mind's commentary. I invite you, just for this moment, to pause and listen, not to the sound of my voice, but to the voice inside your own head. Notice that there is a near constant narrator, a commentator who is giving a running play-by-play of your life. It is judging your experiences, planning your future, replaying your past, worrying, fantasizing, critiquing, and composing stories. This inner voice is so familiar, so perpetually present, that most of us never question it. We assume that this voice is us. We believe its commentary is reality. We live our lives as if we are the thoughts that pass through our awareness. The unexamined belief in the truth of our own thoughts is perhaps the single greatest source of our daily suffering. We grant our random, conditioned, and often biased mental chatter the authority of absolute fact. This is an invitation to become a curious scientist of your own mind, to investigate the true nature of thoughts, and in doing so, to discover a profound freedom from the tyranny of your own inner commentary. The first and most crucial insight is this: thoughts are not facts. We must learn to distinguish the event from the news report about the event. Your mind is like a 24-hour news channel, complete with a hyperactive social media feed. It broadcasts a non-stop stream of headlines, opinions, predictions, advertisements, and a great deal of fake news. Some of it is useful, factual information, but much of it is deeply biased, colored by past conditioning, fueled by fear, and designed to provoke a reaction. A wise person does not believe every single thing they see on television or read on the internet. We must learn to cultivate this same healthy skepticism toward the relentless broadcast of our own mind. A thought arises: I'm a failure. We hear this thought, and we treat it as an objective, verified report from a trusted source. We believe it completely, and as a result, we feel the pain of shame and inadequacy. The mindful approach is to see this thought for what it is, a piece of commentary from the mind. It's a broadcast. You can learn to say to yourself, the failure story channel is on the air right now. You are not denying the thought is there. You are simply changing your relationship to it. You are seeing it as a mental event, not a statement of fact. A thought about the future arises. This upcoming presentation will be a disaster. We treat this as a guaranteed weather forecast, and we begin to experience the anxiety and stress of the disaster before it has even happened. The practice is to see it as speculation. The catastrophe prediction program is running. This simple act of reframing creates a space between you and the thought. In that space, freedom is born. To deepen this insight, we can use our meditation practice to observe thoughts directly, not as concepts, but as pure events in consciousness. As you rest your attention on the anchor of your breath, you will notice thoughts arising. Instead of being frustrated by them, you can turn the lens of your curiosity upon them. When you observe them in this way, you notice their true characteristics. You see that they are spontaneous and ownerless. Did you decide to have your very next thought? Or did it just appear, as if from nowhere? Thoughts emerge from the vast, subconscious depths of the mind, unbidden. This insight directly weakens the ego's grip. If I don't consciously create my thoughts, then how can they be the essential me? You notice that they are insubstantial. What is a thought actually made of? It has no size, no shape, no color, no weight. It is like a puff of smoke in the air. It seems to have form for a moment. But if you try to reach out and grasp it, your hand closes on empty air. Thoughts have no inherent substance. They are phantoms. And you notice, most importantly, that they are impermanent. Every single thought, no matter how powerful, compelling, or sticky it may seem, will eventually dissolve and disappear, provided you don't feed it with your continued attention. Like a cloud drifting across the sky, it arises, it lingers, and it passes away, leaving the clear sky of awareness untouched. A powerful shift can occur when you learn to relate to your thoughts not as something you are thinking, but as something you are hearing. Imagine your inner world is a quiet room. Your thoughts are just sounds that arise in that room. The voice of your inner critic is no different. Fundamentally, from the sound of a bird singing outside your window or a car horn down the street, it is just another temporary, impersonal event in the field of your awareness. When you can hear your own thoughts in this way, you are no longer entangled in their content. You are resting as the silent, spacious awareness that hears them. Let's apply this to some of our most difficult mental habits. Consider the inner critic, that harsh voice of self-judgment that many of us know so well. Our usual strategies are to either believe it, which leads to depression and low self-worth, or to argue with it, which is like trying to fight a phantom. It's exhausting, and you can never win. The mindful approach offers a third option. You can learn to relate to the critic with a kind of detached, friendly recognition. Imagine the inner critic is a cranky, anxious old relative who lives with you. They mean well, but their main function is to worry and complain. When they start their familiar tirade, "You're not good enough, you're going to fail," you don't have to believe them, and you don't have to kick them out of the house. You can learn to say, with a gentle inner smile, "Ah, Uncle Fear is talking again. Thank you for your concern." You are relating to the source of the thought, a deeply conditioned pattern of fear, rather than getting lost in the content of the thought. This disarms the critic with kindness. Or consider obsessive thought loops, when our mind gets stuck on a particular worry or grievance like a scratched record. The same thought plays over and over. Arguing with the thought, "I have to stop thinking about this," only digs the groove deeper. The mindful approach is to recognize, the needle is stuck. Then, with great gentleness, you lift the needle of your attention and deliberately place it back onto something solid and real in the present moment. The feeling of your feet on the floor, the sensation of your breath in your belly. The mind will likely wander back to the scratch, and so you will gently lift the needle and place it back again. You may have to do this 100 times, but each act of returning is a successful moment of unhooking yourself from the obsessive loop. This investigation leads to the most profound shift in identity. The philosopher Descartes famously said, "I think, therefore I am." He placed identity firmly in the act of thinking. The liberating insight of Buddhism is quite different. It is closer to, "Thoughts are known to arise, therefore there is knowing," or "Thoughts happen, therefore there is awareness." This moves your sense of self from the noisy, unreliable, and chaotic commentator to the silent, stable, and ever-present awareness in which the commentary occurs. You are not the movie playing on the screen, you are the screen itself. The screen is never burned by the fires in the movie, nor is it stained by the tears. It remains pristine, no matter how dramatic the story being projected upon it. The goal of this practice is not to achieve a perfectly empty, thought-free mind. That is a state that is neither possible nor desirable for most people. The goal is to no longer be tyrannized by your thoughts. The thoughts will continue to come and go, like clouds in the sky, but they no longer have to define your reality. You can develop the wisdom to choose which thoughts are worth engaging with, like those related to wise planning or creative problem solving, and which are best allowed to drift by, like fearful fantasies or harsh self-judgments. A quiet mind is not an empty mind. A quiet mind is one that is no longer at war with itself. It is a mind that has found the freedom to rest in the silent, spacious awareness that is its own true nature. This awareness was here before your first thought, and it will be here after your last. It is the silent, peaceful home to which you can always return. 16. Equanimity, upekkha, the balanced heart. Visuals. The opens with images of balance, a perfectly balanced set of scales, a gyroscope spinning rapidly, maintaining its orientation no matter how it is tilted, a majestic mountain, serene and unmoved amidst changing weather, sunshine, rain, wind and snow. We have walked a long and insightful path together. We have confronted the universal law of impermanence. We have learned to sit with difficult emotions, to see through the illusory nature of the self, and to no longer be tyrannized by the constant chatter of our own minds. A natural question arises from this deep inner work. What is the result? What quality of heart and mind is forged in the crucible of this profound seeing? The answer lies in one of the most sublime and beautiful states we can cultivate, upekkha, or equanimity. The word equanimity can be easily misunderstood, especially in a culture that values passionate highs and dramatic displays of emotion. So, before we explore what equanimity is, it is crucial that we first understand what it is not. Equanimity is not indifference. This is the most common and dangerous misconception. Indifference is a cold, withdrawn, and uncaring state. It is a form of aversion, a turning away from the world, a defense mechanism that says, I don't care, so it can't hurt me. Indifference creates separation. True equanimity, on the other hand, is born of connection. It is a warm, engaged, and deeply caring state. It is the capacity to care deeply about the world and its beings without being shattered by the pain we witness. Equanimity is not emotional suppression or numbness. It is not about becoming a stoic, unfeeling robot. A person with a balanced heart does not stop feeling joy or sorrow. In fact, they are able to feel these emotions more fully and purely because they are no longer afraid of them. They are not afraid of being swept away by joy into a state of desperate clinging, nor are they afraid of being drowned by sorrow in a sea of despair. They have a spacious heart that can allow all emotions to arise and pass without being capsized by them. And finally, equanimity is not passivity. It does not mean we stand by and allow harm to happen to ourselves or others without taking action. It means that the action we take springs not from a place of blind reactive passion, hatred, or fear, but from a place of clear-seeing wisdom, compassion, and balance. It is the difference between a panicked, flailing reaction and a calm, centered, effective response. So, what then is this profound quality of upekkha? At its heart, equanimity is balance. It is the quality of an unshakable inner equilibrium that allows us to remain centered in the midst of life's unpredictable storms. Like a gyroscope that maintains its orientation no matter how it is tilted, the equanimous heart has the ability to return to its center again and again. It is the vast, open, and accepting nature of the sky that we have spoken of, which allows all weather, sunshine, rain, wind, and snow to pass through it without being fundamentally changed or disturbed by it. Equanimity is a deep, even-mindedness. Our ordinary mind is like a seesaw, constantly thrown up and down by the 8 worldly winds: pleasure and pain, gain and loss, praise and blame, fame and disrepute. When we experience pleasure, gain, praise, or fame, we are thrown up into excitement and clinging. When we experience pain, loss, blame, or disrepute, we are thrown down into despair and aversion. The equanimous mind steps off the seesaw. It learns to meet all of these experiences with the same steady, open, and non-reactive presence. It can appreciate the pleasant without clinging to it, and it can bear the unpleasant without resisting it. This profound balance is born of wisdom. Equanimity is not something we can force through sheer willpower. It is the natural fruit that grows from the deep embodied understanding of impermanence, anicca, because you know, in your bones, that all experiences are like passing clouds. You are no longer compelled to chase after the white, fluffy ones, or to run in terror from the dark, stormy ones. You see praise and blame as nothing more than fleeting sounds. You see gain and loss as the natural ebb and flow of the river. This wisdom is what frees your heart from its reactive bondage. Perhaps the most beautiful way to understand equanimity is as the supportive ground for all other heart qualities. In Buddhism, upekkha is one of the 4 Brahma viharas, or divine abodis, alongside loving kindness, metta, compassion, karuna, and sympathetic joy, mudita. Equanimity is often seen as the grounding foundation that allows the other 3 to become boundless. Without the balance of equanimity, our loving kindness can curdle into possessive attachment. Our compassion can become overwhelmed by the world's suffering and burn out into despair. Our joy in others' success can be tinged with the shadow of comparison or envy. Equanimity is the strong, spacious, and wise container that allows us to love freely, to feel compassion without drowning, and to celebrate joy without selfishness. There is a powerful parable that illustrates this quality. Imagine a great mountain. It has stood for eons, solid, grounded, and majestic. In the summer, the sun shines warmly upon its slopes. The mountain simply receives the warmth, without becoming attached to it or fearing its departure. In the winter, violent storms rage against it. Icy winds and torrential rains lash its face. The mountain remains unmoved, unshaken. It does not complain or resist. It simply endures, knowing the storm will pass. Birds build nests in its crags, and then they fly away. Hikers climb its peak, and then they descend. The mountain is not attached to their coming or their going. It remains utterly itself through all the changing conditions upon its surface. The teaching is to cultivate this mountain mind. How do we practice this? One of the most direct methods is by observing the flow of what is called Vedana, or feeling tone, in our meditation. As you sit, instead of getting lost in the stories of your thoughts, bring your attention to the raw quality of each experience as it arises. Is it pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral? The feeling of a soft breeze on your skin might be pleasant. The sound of a car alarm outside might be unpleasant. The feeling of your hands resting in your lap might be neutral. Your only job is to note the feeling tone without reacting. When a pleasant sensation arises, notice the mind's tendency to grasp it and say, "More of this." Simply note "pleasant" and let it be. When an unpleasant sensation arises, like an ache in your back, notice the mind's tendency to push it away and say, "I don't want this." Simply note "unpleasant" and allow it to be. By doing this, you are directly training your nervous system to break its lifelong, habitual pattern of chasing pleasure and fighting pain. You are teaching your mind that it is possible to experience all of life's textures with a calm, balanced, and non-reactive presence. We can also extend this practice to our relationships. Think of someone you love dearly. Of course, you wish them happiness. But can you also hold the wisdom that their ultimate happiness and suffering depend on their own choices and actions, their own karma? This is loving with equanimity. It is a deep, caring love, free from the burden of trying to control their life. Think of a person you find difficult. Can you see them too as someone who is the heir to their own actions and wish them peace, free from the heat of your own reactive anger or judgment? This is the vast, steady heart of equanimity. This balanced heart is not a cold or distant state. It is a heart that has found its true home. It is radiant with a quiet, unshakable peace. It is the freedom that comes from no longer being a slave to your own likes and dislikes. It is the ability to walk through this beautiful, heartbreaking, and ever-changing world with your heart wide open, able to respond to all of life's joys and sorrows with wisdom, with courage, and with a profound and steady grace. This is the peace that our practice makes possible. It is the peace of a heart that has finally come to rest. 17. The parable of the raft, using the teachings, not clinging to them. We have journeyed far, gathering a rich collection of tools and insights for the path. We have the map of impermanence, the anchor of the breath, the clear sky of awareness, the balanced heart of equanimity. With these tools, we can begin to navigate the turbulent waters of our lives with greater skill and less suffering. However, as we become more adept, a new and very subtle danger can emerge. It is the danger that the very teachings designed to set us free can themselves become a new object of clinging, a new source of identity, a new and more refined cage for the ego. This is the trap of the spiritual ego. It is the part of us that begins to think, I am a good meditator. I understand these deep concepts. I am more mindful than others. I am a Buddhist. We may have started to dismantle the old house of me, built with the bricks of career and relationships, only to begin secretly rebuilding it with new, spiritual bricks. The sense of self, which we have worked so hard to see through, simply puts on a new costume. It is a cunning and persistent illusion. The Buddha, with his profound understanding of the human mind, foresaw this danger. He knew that even his own words, the very Dharma itself, could become a trap if misunderstood. To guard against this, he offered his followers a simple and powerful parable, the parable of the raft. Imagine, he said, a person standing on the bank of a vast and dangerous river. This side of the river represents our ordinary state of existence, what is called samsara. It is a realm of confusion, reactivity, stress, and suffering. The currents are strong and the water is deep. Looking across the river, the person can see the other shore. This other shore is safe, peaceful, and beautiful. It represents liberation, nibbana, state of wisdom, peace, and freedom from suffering. There is no bridge to cross this river, and no ferryman to carry them. The person realizes that if they want to reach the safety of the other shore, they must rely on their own efforts. So, they begin to gather materials from the riverbank branches, reeds, vines, and leaves. These materials represent the teachings of the Dharma, the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path, the practices of mindfulness, ethics, and wisdom. With great diligence and wise effort, the person lashes these materials together, constructing a simple but sturdy raft. The raft is not meant to be beautiful or perfect. It is meant to be functional. Its sole purpose is to get them across the water. Climbing aboard their raft, they push off into the current. They paddle with strength and awareness, using the raft to protect them from the dangers of the river. They navigate skillfully, and after a long journey, they arrive safely on the other shore. They step onto the firm, peaceful ground of liberation, their heart filled with gratitude for the raft that served them so well. Now, the Buddha posed the crucial question to his monks. What should this wise person do with the raft? Should they, out of a deep sense of gratitude and attachment, think to themselves, "This raft has been so helpful to me. I could not have made it without it. I must carry it with me wherever I go." The monks replied, "No, Blessed One, that would be foolish." "Indeed," the Buddha said, "the wise person understands the raft's purpose. On the water, it was an essential tool for survival and liberation. But here, on dry land, if they were to hoist it onto their shoulders, it would become a heavy, cumbersome burden. It would hinder their freedom of movement and prevent them from journeying further inland. The truly wise person," the Buddha explained, "would express their gratitude for the raft, and then they would leave it behind at the water's edge, continuing their journey onward, unburdened and free." This simple story is a profound teaching about our relationship with the spiritual path itself. The raft is the collection of all the teachings and practices we have been exploring. The concepts of anicca, dukkha, and anatta, the practices of mindfulness of breathing, noting our thoughts, the rain meditation, cultivating equanimity, all of these are the branches and vines we use to build our raft. They are brilliantly designed tools with a very specific purpose. That purpose is to cross the river of suffering. These teachings are not meant to be collected as intellectual knowledge or as badges of spiritual identity. They are practical tools designed to help us move from a state of confusion to a state of clarity, from a state of reactivity to a state of peace, from suffering to freedom. Carrying the raft is the act of spiritual clinging. This can take many forms. We might cling to the concepts, getting lost in endless intellectual debates about the subtleties of Buddhist philosophy. We might spend all our time reading about the raft, polishing it, and arguing about its design, all the while never actually putting it in the water. We might cling to a spiritual identity, becoming proud of being a Buddhist or a meditator, and subtly looking down on those who are not on the path. This is like decorating our raft with flags and banners to show everyone how spiritual we are. We might cling to specific techniques, becoming rigid and dogmatic. My way of meditating is the only right way. This is like insisting our raft is the only one that can possibly float. Leaving the raft behind is the mark of true liberation. This does not mean you become arrogant and discard the teachings with disrespect. It means you have used them so effectively that they have become a part of you. The wisdom has been fully embodied. The person who is truly free does not need to constantly remind themselves everything is impermanent. They simply live in a way that is naturally in harmony with this truth. The person with a truly balanced heart does not need to practice an equanimity meditation. Their heart is simply equanimous. The teachings, having served their purpose of transforming your mind, are no longer needed as external, conceptual scaffolds. You don't need the raft because you have learned how to swim. So, it can be a valuable practice to compassionately check in with ourselves. Are there any signs that we might be carrying our raft? Do you feel a subtle sense of pride or superiority about your spiritual practice or understanding? Do you find yourself wanting to debate or prove the correctness of these teachings, rather than simply embodying them in your life? Has your meditation practice become a rigid, joyless chore you feel you have to do, rather than a space of discovery and freedom you get to explore? Are you using your spiritual knowledge in any way that creates a sense of separation between yourself and others? If you notice any of these tendencies, it is not a cause for self-judgment. It is simply an opportunity to see the cunning nature of the ego. It is a gentle invitation from the universe to loosen your grip, to remember the purpose of the raft. There is another famous Zen saying that captures this same wisdom. The teachings are like a finger pointing at the moon. Do not mistake the finger for the moon. The moon is liberation, awakening, peace. The teachings, all of these words, concepts, and techniques are just the finger pointing the way. A foolish person becomes obsessed with the finger. They study its every detail, its length, its shape, its angle. They might even begin to worship the finger. And in all this fascination with the pointer, they completely miss the radiant, silent moon to which it is pointing. The ultimate goal of this path is not to become a perfect Buddhist or an expert on the raft. The goal is to become a free and compassionate human being. The goal is to get to the other shore. Use these teachings skillfully. Be deeply grateful for how they can help you. And then, be willing to let them go when they have served their purpose, so that you can walk, unburdened, on the firm, peaceful ground of liberation. 18. Into being. You are the cloud. Our journey has taken us to some profound and challenging places. We have courageously investigated the nature of the self and found that, upon close inspection, no solid, separate, unchanging entity can be found. The teaching of anatta, or no self, can feel like a process of emptying out, of deconstruction. It can leave us with a lingering question. If I am not this separate self I have always believed myself to be, then what am I? Does this path end in a cold, empty void? The answer is a beautiful and resounding no. The emptying out of the false, separate self is not the end of the path. It is the clearing of the ground. It is the necessary preparation for a truth that is far more vast, more comforting, and more revolutionary to take root in our hearts. This is the truth of interbeing. This beautiful word was given to us by the beloved Vietnamese Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh as a way to make the ancient teaching of dependent origination, Pratitya Samutpada, accessible to the modern heart. Interbeing is the positive expression of emptiness. It teaches us that to be empty of a separate self does not mean we are nothing. It means we are full of everything. It means that to be is to interbe. To understand this, let us perform a short meditation together, inspired by Thich Nhat Hanh's teaching. Imagine you are holding a single sheet of paper in your hands. Look at it. On the surface, it appears to be a simple, separate object. But let us look more deeply, with the eyes of a poet, with the eyes of wisdom. Can you see a cloud floating in this sheet of paper? If you cannot see it yet, let's investigate. Without a cloud, there can be no rain. Without rain, the trees cannot grow. And without trees, we cannot make paper. So the cloud is absolutely essential for the paper to exist. The cloud is not just in the sky, it is right here, in this sheet of paper. If we were to return the cloud to the sky, the sheet of paper could not be. Now, look again. Can you see the sunshine? The sun is vital for the tree to grow through photosynthesis, and it is also what causes the water to evaporate to form the cloud. So, the sunshine is also in the paper. And what about the logger who cut down the tree? We can see him and his daily bread, which was made from wheat. And we can see the wheat field, which also needed sun and rain. And we can see the logger's parents, who gave him life. They are all here, in this seemingly simple object. If we continue to look, we see that everything, the earth, the minerals in the soil, the person who made the factory machine, the ideas in their head, the entire cosmos has conspired to bring this sheet of paper into being. It is full of the universe. The only thing it is empty of is a separate, independent existence. It cannot be by itself. It has to interbe with everything else. Now, let us turn this powerful gaze upon ourselves. Look at your own hand. What do you see? If you look deeply, you can see your mother and your father. Their genetic material, their hopes, their habits, and even their wounds are present in the very cells of your body. And you can see their parents and their parents' parents, stretching back through countless generations, a great river of humanity flowing into and through you. They are not gone, they are alive in you. Look again. You can see the meal you ate for breakfast this morning. You can see the grain of wheat and the farmer who tended it. You can see the sun that nourished it and the rain that watered it. The earth and the sky have literally become your body today. Look at your thoughts. Can you see your teachers? The author of a book that changed your life, the friend who gave you kind advice, Their ideas and their caring have shaped the landscape of your mind. They are present in the very way you think. You are breathing. With every inhalation, you are taking in the air that has been exhaled by the trees and the grasses. You are in the most intimate relationship with the entire vegetable kingdom. You are breathing them in, and they are breathing you in. When we look at ourselves in this way, the same truth becomes clear. You, like the sheet of paper, are empty of a separate, isolated self. Your being is a temporary, beautiful, and sacred meeting point for the entire cosmos. To be is to interbe. This is not just a beautiful poem or a philosophical idea. It is a reality that, when truly understood, has the power to revolutionize every aspect of our lives. It dissolves our sense of alienation. The painful feeling of being a lonely, fragile ego struggling against a vast and indifferent world begins to melt away. You are not a stranger here. You are not a visitor on this planet. You are a true child of this earth. You are the universe itself, manifesting for a little while in the form of a human being. This realization is the ultimate homecoming. It becomes the foundation of a true ecological consciousness. When you know that you inter with the river, the forest, and the air, you can no longer see the environment as something out there that is separate from you. You realize that the river's water flows in your own veins, the forest's oxygen fills your own lungs. Harming the planet is a direct act of harming yourself. Healing the planet is a direct act of self-care. It becomes the root of non-violence and boundless compassion. When you understand that you interbe with the person you call other, the lines of separation become transparent. Their suffering is not entirely separate from your suffering. Their joy is not entirely separate from your joy. How can you wish to harm them without also harming yourself? This makes compassion not just a nice moral principle to follow, but the most logical and natural response to the way things truly are. This insight even heals our relationship with Timmy itself. When we look at life through the lens of interbeing, we see that there is no birth and no death, only transformation. Think of our cloud again. A cloud can never die. It can only change its form. It can become rain, sleet, or snow. The rain can land in a mountain stream and journey to the ocean. The water in the ocean can be drunk by a whale, or it can evaporate and become a cloud once more. The cloud may have a different shape and a new name, but its essence, the water, has not been lost. It is a continuation. This is the truth of our own lives. Our loved ones who have passed are not gone. They have simply changed their form. They continue in using our memories, in the lessons they taught us, in the color of our eyes. They continue in the ripples of their actions, the kindness they showed that continues to inspire others. When we learn to see this continuation, our grief, while still painful, is no longer a dark abyss of absolute loss. It becomes a tender practice of looking for our loved ones in all the new forms they have taken, both inside and outside of us. There is a simple Zen story that captures this perfectly. We think we are a wave in the ocean. The wave is born, it rises to a peak, it gains a sense of its own identity. I am a tall wave, I am a small wave, and it sees the other waves and feels separate from them. And the wave is terrified of its end, when it will crash upon the shore and cease to be. But one day, the wave has an insight. It looks deeply into itself and realizes that its fundamental nature is not wave. Its fundamental nature is water. It realizes it is, and always has been, the entire ocean. When it crashes on the shore, it is not dying. It is simply returning to its true, vast self, ready to arise again in a new form. The path that began with deconstructing the separate self does not end in a lonely void. It opens out into this radiant vision of our profound and unbreakable connection with all of life. You are not a separate fragment, struggling alone. You are the entire cosmos, experiencing itself for a short while as a person. To know this, To truly feel this is to be free from fear. It is to live with a heart that is no longer walled in, a heart that is open, porous, and filled with a boundless and unconditional love for all that is. 19. Living a transformed life. The path is the destination. We have traveled from the simple truth of a cracked teacup to the boundless expanse of interbeing. We have followed the river of now, tended the garden of our minds, and learned to see through the illusion of the separate self. We have gathered a raft of profound insights and practical tools. Now we arrive at the most vital question of all. How does this change the way I live my life on a Tuesday morning, when I'm late for work, the bills are due, and the kids are screaming? How do these sublime truths translate into our messy, beautiful, and very ordinary human lives? The answer is found in a simple but revolutionary reorientation of our perspective. The goal of this path is not to arrive at a distant, mythical destination called enlightenment, as if it were a city at the end of a long and arduous road. The true transformation lies in realizing that the path is the destination. Every mindful step, every compassionate response, every moment of clear seeing, these are not means to an end. They are the end. They are the living embodiment of a transformed life. Before we explore what this life looks and feels like, we must first dispel some common myths about what it means to be awakened or enlightened. First, a transformed life is not a life without problems. The universe will continue to operate according to its own laws. The first arrows of life will continue to fly. You will still get sick. You will still face disappointment. Your car will still break down, and you will still lose people you love. The transformation is not in the circumstances of your life, but in your relationship to those circumstances. You have learned not to shoot the second arrow. The pain of life still arrives, but the self-created suffering of resistance, blame, and despair begins to fall away. Second, a transformed life is not a state of perpetual giddy bliss. It is not about feeling happy-clappy all the timmy. It is about cultivating an inner balance, an equanimity that can hold both life's joys and its sorrows with the same spacious, open heart. You can feel profound sadness without drowning in it. You can feel exuberant joy without desperately clinging to it. The goal is not a permanent emotional high. It is a permanent state of underlying peace and balance that exists beneath the changing weather of your emotions. And third, a transformed life is not about becoming a detached, aloof zombie. It is the exact opposite. Seeing through the illusion of the separate self does not lead to disconnection. As the wisdom of interbeing shows us, it leads to the most profound connection possible. You become more present, more empathetic, and more authentically engaged with the world, because you are no longer seeing it through the distorting filter of what's in it for me. So, what does this transformed life actually look and feel like in practical, everyday terms? It feels like a lightness of being. Imagine you have been carrying a heavy, invisible backpack your entire life. This backpack is filled with the weight of your ego, the need to be right, the need to look good, the fear of judgment, the burden of past grievances, the anxiety for future success. Living a transformed life is the process of learning to set this backpack down. You realize you don't need to defend the story of me so fiercely. The release of this constant, low-level effort of ego maintenance is an incredible liberation. It brings a sense of ease, humor, and lightness to your presence in the world. When someone criticizes you, you may still feel the sting, but it doesn't shatter you. It's just information. You can learn from it, or you can let it go, without the heavy baggage of shame. It feels like an increased presence and vividness, because your mind is no longer perpetually hijacked by regrets about the past or anxieties about the future. You start to show up for the only moment you actually have, right now. Life's simple moments, which were once just mundane filler between important events become sources of quiet joy and wonder. The taste of your morning coffee, the feeling of warm water on your hands as you wash the dishes, the sight of the leaves rustling outside your window, these moments become rich and alive. You are living the wisdom of the cherry blossom, finding beauty not in some distant future, but in the fleeting perfection of the ordinary. It feels like a spaciousness around difficult emotions. You still feel anger, fear, and sadness, but you are no longer possessed by them. You have learned that you are the sky, not the cloud. When a wave of anxiety arises, you can feel the physical sensations, the racing heart, the tight stomach, and meet them with a compassionate, allowing presence. You can say, "Ah, this is the feeling of anxiety. It is welcome here." By not fighting it, by giving it space, you rob it of its power. It can move through you like a storm passing through the vastness of the sky without destroying the sky itself. You can feel the emotion without becoming the emotion. It feels like the natural arising of compassion, because you have investigated your own suffering, and because you have seen, through the story of Kisagotami and the truth of interbeing, that all beings are vulnerable. Compassion ceases to be a moral should. It is no longer a duty. It becomes a natural, spontaneous response. When you see someone acting out of anger or greed, your first reaction is less likely to be judgment and more likely to be a quiet curiosity. I wonder what pain is driving this person. They too are seeking happiness and trying to avoid suffering, just like me. This doesn't mean you condone harmful behavior, but it means you are less likely to take it personally and more likely to respond with wisdom. This all culminates in the ability to engage in wise and responsive action instead of blind reaction. The space you have cultivated between stimulus and response is the birthplace of all wisdom. Your child spills a glass of milk on the freshly cleaned floor. The old reactive pattern might be to instantly yell in frustration, creating a storm of fear and shame in the house. The new, transformed response is a pause, a single, conscious breath. In that tiny gap, you see the situation for what it is. An accident. You see your child's fearful face. You see the spilled milk, and your action comes from that clarity. You get a cloth and say, "It's okay, let's clean it up together." No drama, no second arrows, just a simple, effective, and kind response to reality. This is the meaning of "the path is the destination." Our goal-oriented culture teaches us to endure the journey in order to get to the prize at the end. We suffer through the practice to get to enlightenment. But the Zen master reminds us, there is no way to peace. Peace is the way. Every mindful breath you take is not a step toward peace. It is a moment of peace. Every timmy you choose a compassionate response over a reactive one. You are not practicing for a future awakened state. You are the awakening in that moment. The destination is not a place you arrive at. It is a quality of presence you learn to inhabit, right here, right now. Living a transformed life is not about escaping the world or floating above it on a cloud of bliss. It is about learning to walk on this very earth, in this very body, with a new mind and a new heart. It is a life that is, on the surface, completely ordinary, and yet, on the inside, utterly extraordinary. It is a life where you are more present for the small wonders, more connected to those around you, less burdened by the phantoms of your mind, and more able to meet each sacred, unrepeatable moment with wisdom, courage, and a deep, unshakable peace. 20. The silent teacher, the wisdom found in stillness. For these past few hours, we have journeyed together through a world of words. I have shared with you concepts, stories, parables, and practical conveyed through language. These words are like the raft we discussed, tools designed to help us cross a river. But what if the deepest truths cannot be captured in words at all? What if the most profound teacher on this path is not found in any of these concepts, but in the silence that surrounds them? We live in a world that is addicted to noise, We are surrounded by external noise, the constant hum of traffic, the endless chatter of television news, the persistent ping of notifications on our phones. And we are plagued by internal noise, the non-stop mental commentary of planning, judging, worrying, and remembering. We have become so accustomed to this cacophony that we have grown afraid of silence. When a moment of quiet does descend, we rush to fill it with a podcast, with music, or with our own anxious thoughts. We have forgotten that silence is not an empty void to be feared. It is a rich, fertile ground from which all true wisdom springs. When we speak of silence on the spiritual path, we are speaking of two interconnected things. The first is the simple absence of external sound, a state that is becoming increasingly rare and precious in our modern world. But the second, and more important, is a state of inner stillness. This is the true silence we seek to cultivate. It is possible for the mind to be profoundly quiet and still, even in the middle of a noisy city. This is the silence of the vast, open sky that remains untroubled by the noisy weather passing through it. It is the silence of the deep ocean, which is undisturbed by the churning waves on its surface. Imagine your mind as a deep lake. When the winds of desire, aversion, and anxiety are constantly blowing, the surface of the lake is choppy and agitated. Any reflection on its surface, the reflection of the moon, of the stars, of the world around you, is fragmented, distorted, and unclear. You cannot see reality as it is, because the surface of your mind is too disturbed. The entire purpose of our meditation, practice of anchoring to the breath, of noting our thoughts, of accepting our feelings is to allow these winds of reactivity to gradually die down. As the winds cease, the waves on the lake begin to subside, until one day the surface becomes as smooth and clear as glass. In this state of profound stillness, the lake of your mind can perfectly reflect the truth of reality, the radiant moon of your own awakened nature. If silence is a teacher, what are its lessons? First, silence reveals what is already here. In the noisy rush of our daily lives, our senses are dulled. We overlook the universe of beauty that is right in front of us. When we intentionally create moments of silence, we begin to notice things we were previously deaf and blind to. We hear the subtle rhythm of our own heartbeat. We feel the delicate sensation of the air touching our skin. We see the impossibly intricate pattern of veins on a single leaf. We realize that the world is not a mundane or boring place. It is a ceaseless festival of wonders. We were simply too lost in the noise of our own minds to receive the invitation. Second, silence allows the unconscious to be healed. The constant chatter of our thinking mind acts like a lid, holding down a vast reservoir of unprocessed experiences. Our unresolved griefs, our hidden fears, our deep-seated conditioning, they all live in this subconscious realm. As long as we keep the mind busy and noisy, this material remains submerged, where it silently influences our behavior and causes us suffering. When we cultivate inner stillness, we create a safe and spacious container for this submerged material to finally surface. It is like letting a jar of murky water sit undisturbed. The sediment, the old pains and confusions gradually settles to the bottom, leaving the water of our consciousness clear. Many of us fear silence for this very reason. We are afraid of what might emerge from the depths, but the practice gives us the courage and the compassion of the rain meditation to meet whatever arises with a healing embrace. Third, silence is the native language of interbeing. Words, by their very nature, are tools of division. They chop reality into separate objects. Me, you, tree, sky. This is useful for practical purposes, but it creates and reinforces the illusion of separation. In moments of deep, wordless silence, this illusion dissolves. We don't need to think the thought, "I am connected to everything." We can feel it as a direct, lived reality. The boundary between our own breath and the air of the world disappears. The separation between the observer and the observed melts away. We experience ourselves not as a noun in the world, but as a verb of the world, a breathing, sensing, living part of a vast, silent, and intelligent whole. How then do we invite this silent teacher more fully into our lives? We can begin with our formal meditation. Somatims, we can practice by letting go of all techniques. We can let go of the anchor of the breath, let go of noting our thoughts, and simply sit. The instruction is to do nothing, just be. You provide a silent, open, and receptive space for life to unfold within you, without any agenda, not even the agenda to meditate correctly. This is a practice of pure, choiceless awareness, a profound act of trust in the silence itself. But we do not need to be on a meditation cushion or a silent retreat to find this stillness. We can weave pockets of silence into the fabric of our everyday lives. Perhaps you can turn off the car radio during your morning commute and just be present with the experience of driving. Perhaps you can go for a walk in a park without headphones, listening instead to the symphony of sounds around you, the birds, the wind, the distant laughter. Perhaps before each meal, you can take just 30 seconds of silence to look at your food, to acknowledge all the life that went into creating it, and to feel a moment of gratitude before you begin to eat. These small, intentional pauses can radically change the quality of your day, acting as sacred moments of reset for your nervous system. And finally, we practice silence in the way we listen to others. In most conversations, we are not truly listening. We are formulating our response, waiting for our turn to speak, filtering what the other person is saying through our own opinions and judgments. The practice of deep listening is to offer another person the rare and precious gift of our full, silent, and non-judgmental presence. When you listen in this way, you create a space of safety and trust where true understanding can occur. This, too, is a profound practice of stillness and compassion. The ultimate truth of who you are cannot be found in a book, a lecture, or a concept. It is not a thought that you can think. It is the silent, spacious, and knowing awareness that exists prior to all thought. It is the stillness of the lake that was there before the first wave and will be there after the last. Our practice does not create this inner peace. We cannot force the mind to be still. Our practice is simply the act of letting go of the things that disturb the mind. We let go of our clinging. We let go of our resistance. We let go of our stories. And when we have let go of enough, the mind naturally settles into the state of profound stillness and clarity that is its own true nature. So, in the midst of your busy, noisy, and often overwhelming life, remember this sanctuary of silence that exists within you at all times. It is your ultimate refuge. It is your deepest home. The final invitation of this long journey is perhaps the simplest of all. Let go of the noise, settle into the stillness, and rest in the profound, silent peace that you already are. And so, we arrive at the end of our journey through words, and at the beginning of a new way of walking through the world. We began with a simple, cracked teacup. We saw it first as a symbol of our frustration with a world that refuses to be perfect, a world that is subject to decay and change. Now, after our tim together, perhaps we can see it with new eyes. The crack is no longer a flaw. It is a testament to the cup's life, a story written by Timmy. We understand that its fragile, impermanent nature is not what makes it tragic. It is what makes it precious. We have learned to love the cup, not in spite of its brokenness, but because of it. This shift in perception is the heart of the entire path. It is the journey from resistance to acceptance, from struggle to grace. We have learned to stop fighting the river of life and have begun to learn how to swim with its current. We have learned to see ourselves not as the fleeting, turbulent weather of our thoughts and emotions, but as the vast, open, and peaceful sky in which all weather unfolds. We have discovered the wisdom of the gardener, understanding that we have the power to cultivate beautiful qualities in our lives, not by defying the seasons of change, but by working in harmony with them. We have seen that the very teachings that guide us are like a raft, a tool to be used for liberation, and then left behind, lest it become another burden to carry. And through the eyes of interbeing, we have seen that the self we were trying so hard to protect is not a separate island, but a wave in a vast and interconnected ocean of life. The deconstruction of our separateness does not lead to a void, but to a profound and loving union with all that is. To live a transformed life is to carry this understanding in your heart. It is to walk through your days with a new lightness, having set down the heavy burden of needing the world to be different than it is. It is to meet both joy and sorrow with a spacious and balanced heart. It is to find the sacred in the ordinary, the beauty in the fleeting, and the connection in what once felt like separation. The search for peace ends, not when we finally manage to control the world, but when we finally cease our war against it. The path is not about becoming a perfect, superhuman being. It is about becoming a truly, authentically, and compassionately human being. It is about coming home to the quiet, peaceful awareness that has been patiently waiting for you beneath the noise of your mind all along. May you walk this path with courage, with kindness, and with a gentle heart. May you find your peace, not in some distant future, but in the grace of this very moment, just as